Neuroscientists find that the medial prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex are involved in the self-perception of one's life path, positive growth, motivation, and emotional intelligence, all the innate tools necessary to live a thriving and abundant life. And fMRI studies show us that when people express internal gratitude, bioelectric activation occurs in these same areas. Like an on-off switch, gratitude connects with the brain's reward center and creates a feeling of peace. It puts us in a state of mind that allows for better assessment and calm response, even while under pressure. Gratitude affects the brain's default mode network, or DMN, which is involved in self-identity, morality, and social relationships. With gratitude, the DMN becomes a more focused picture, which allows one to see more connections and opportunities as they occur in real time. Gratitude also improves heart rate variability, which gives more control over the parasympathetic nervous system. This allows for better impulse control, which inevitably leads to making better decisions. Gratitude also cultivates better sleep quality and lower inflammation. Gratitude not only feels good, it brings good things. No matter if you think it's merely perception or coincidence, or if you think it's luck, karma, or grace, whatever you want to call it, there is a predictable cause and effect when you practice gratitude. Your life inexplicably changes for the best. This is a law of nature that has been written about in most religious and esoteric traditions. In the Torah, there is Psalms 50:23, as a sacrifice of thanksgiving, honor me, and show me the way to salvation. In the New Testament, Philippians 4:6-7 says that, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God, and the peace of God shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Perhaps the most direct version of this is found in the Quran's 14:7. If you are grateful, I will give you more. If you are ungrateful, punishment is severe. In Hinduism's Bhagavad Gita, if one offers with devotion, I will accept with love. In Bhakti, it is taught that gratitude and devotion evoke grace. In Buddhism, gratitude is a foundational practice that cultivates mindfulness and compassion and leads to blessings in your personal life. In Sikhism, daily gratitude is said to lift the spirit and bring about auspicious outcomes. Sufism teaches that gratitude attracts increased blessing. Yoga teaches that gratitude is a clear, luminous state of mind that draws grace and auspicious coincidence towards the practitioner. 33 in the Tao Te Ching says that contentment brings wealth. And in Hermetic traditions, the principles of correspondence and vibration teach that a grateful inner state has a resonance that attracts more experiences to be grateful for. Gratitude greatly increases opportunity, protection, guidance, harmony with others, self-sufficiency, and overall peace. This is true whether you choose to believe that it's just the neuroscience of having better control of emotions, clearer perception, and stronger social bonds, or if you believe that the world we live in resonates in response to the vibrations we generate. Either way, the more you give thanks, the better your life will be. According to research, the most common and effective practices are gratitude journaling, which can be listing just a few things 2 to 3 times per week, and practicing a form of gratitude meditation, of which there are many. Happy Thanksgiving, and thank you. Greg Reese reporting.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. Hope you guys liked that video from Greg Reese. Yes, gratitude is a superpower is the name of that video, and I thought it made a pretty good point on just gratitude in general. I like some of his pronunciations in the video. He called it, instead of Philippians, I think it was Philippines or something like that. So Greg is a man of the world, and he covered all of the different world religions and things in that video, which, of course, I don't ascribe to. You know, I'm a Christian first and foremost, and I know most of you guys listening are as well. So I wouldn't put any stock personally in a lot of that other stuff, because it all is about gratitude to God, the God of the Bible, and Christ Jesus in particular. which he did mention, so that's good. Anyway, I just wanted to play that because I thought it kind of made the point of this whole week of being grateful for the things that you have, for the people in your life, and for everything God has done for you personally. So, and I have tried to live my life in that way. It's hard at times, I must admit, but this week in particular, I think with Thanksgiving in the U.S., is something that we like to try and set aside a day and draw attention to that and remember how we should be grateful for all of the things that we have in our life and all the blessings that we have. And they are many. They are many. I hope you guys had a really blessed Thanksgiving week, Thanksgiving Day in particular on Thursday. I know we did. We had a good family gathering, about 10 people, I guess it was, so a small group, but that's our typical family get-together that we do. Birthdays and different celebrations and things, and we had a nice time on Thursday, a good meal together, and it was a pretty relaxed, as they say, chill. It was a pretty chill day on Thursday, but the rest of the week has been complete insanity from beginning to end, from the time I get up to the time I go to bed. I don't know about you guys, but that's pretty much every day around here. So it's good to have a little day there of a little bit of respite. So anyway, hello and welcome. This is your host, Doug Diamond. We're going to take a look at the news. It's 9:07 p.m. on 11/30, the last day of November. So we begin December. Really, before we hang up tonight, before we call it quits, we will be into December. It's really hard to imagine. Christmas just around the corner. And again, a new year. So we will see what 2026 brings. My guess is, being how you guys and certainly myself believe that we are in the end times, I would imagine 2026 is going to be very interesting, to say the least. So yes, Matt says Thanksgiving is a beautiful thing to hold on to. We don't have it here, just Halloween getting bigger every year where Matt lives. Yeah, I know. It's a good holiday. It's a good U.S. tradition, but you guys could celebrate it. You could celebrate it on your own without the state, without the country, the nation, of Australia or wherever you happen to be, having to be the ones to delegate it. So anyway, yeah, we had a good week together, and hope you guys have as well. It's been an interesting week, lots of things in the news happening, and thought we would take a look at things. We've got Hal Turner Radio Show pulled up, so let's start with that. Now, you may note that I have only just a few tabs on my screen at the moment, and that is because, for whatever reason, my browser wasn't cooperating with me and letting me put my normal, 150 to 300 tabs across the top of the screen. I don't know. Things tend to upgrade and update themselves into oblivion. You may have noticed that. Things work fine, and then you have an update, and then another update, and then another update. And it goes on and on and on. And then before too long, nothing ever works the same. And it's super frustrating. I know I hear from lots of people, lots of clients and friends who say the same thing, and I'm sure you guys have experienced that as well. So we are updating to oblivion, and this Chrome browser I'm using here for the live stream just simply would not load all the tabs I wanted to have tonight. So we're only going to have 5 tabs, and that's it. That's all we're going to talk about all night. No, I'm just teasing. I've got a whole page here of all kinds of other links and stuff, so I just ask you guys bear with me a little bit tonight, just because I'm only starting with the 5 tabs you see there, but we've got the normal usual amount. So I'm just going to have to copy and paste as we go. It might take a little bit longer, unfortunately, but I think it will work just fine. And hopefully you guys have set aside a little time to hang out with me. So it is 9:10 p.m. and we'll probably go 2 to 3 hours just like normal. And we'll see what all we can get through. So anyway, the first thing I've got pulled up here is Hal's site. I just have the homepage pulled up and the headlines that he's got. Again, a little bit of covert intel, but it's mostly different reports, different articles that he has open to the public. The newest one from earlier today, Trump and Venezuela's Maduro have spoken by phone. So that just happened apparently. And more on that. I don't think this particular article has a ton of information, but you guys can check that out if you are interested in that. We have video claim. Again, Hal reporting this, Hal Turner. JP Morgan Chase moved entire precious metals trading staff to Singapore during the Thanksgiving holiday. I wonder why that is. So that's a claim. It says video claim. I'm not sure if that's substantiated, but I do find that that's very interesting. JP Morgan Chase moved entire precious metals trading staff to Singapore during the Thanksgiving holiday. My guess is in anticipation of something rather large happening, right? U.S.-Ukraine meeting in Florida did not go well. Doomsday announced and reality finally understood. So a meeting of the minds, yet again, I guess. Russia orders its citizens in Venezuela to immediately evacuate. So we've been hearing off and on, over the last few months, really, it seems like, imminent attack in Venezuela. It's going to happen anytime, and then it never happens. Even Hal was out earlier last week saying for sure it's going to happen on Tuesday, and then Tuesday came and went, nothing happened. So, it's really hard to say. You can't really put a date on things like this just because things don't work out the way that you might think that they will, and that goes for end times as well. And you may have noticed that end times dates are very, very hard, very, very difficult to pinpoint accurately, and your guess is as good as mine and anyone else's. So anyway, that's some of the top headlines he's got on his website at the moment. He's got more info here on Zelensky, Ukraine, and I don't know, some other things here, Black Sea information here. So it's a good site, HalTurnerRadioShow.com, and he does really good work on his nightly radio show that he does. So feel free to have a look at Hal's site, HalTurnerRadioShow.com. I'm just going to close these tabs as I move just because we don't really need them anymore, and I've got them saved for our send-out that we'll do on Substack, probably on Tuesday. Last week it was Wednesday just because it took me a while to get to everything, but it's generally Tuesday for the most part. That has a list of all of the links, video links, and all the articles that we will talk about tonight. And again, it's probably going to be pretty much the normal amount that we'll see tonight that we normally do, even though I can't have all the tabs open. Trump rejects Maduro request for amnesty in newly disclosed phone call, which is what Hal mentioned on his site. President Trump has reportedly rejected Maduro's request for broad amnesty during a newly disclosed phone conversation last week, telling Maduro and his top advisors to drop their demands and swiftly exit Venezuela as U.S. military pressure intensifies, which has lately included an order to halt all flights in the country's sovereign airspace. Yes, I think we've got an article pulled up on that we basically claimed their airspace and shut it down, apparently. Can we do that? I don't think so. Anyway, they're trying. According to people familiar with the exchange who spoke to the Wall Street Journal, Trump and Maduro discussed a sweeping amnesty plan, during which time Maduro is said to have sought blanket legal protection for himself, his senior officials, and their families. The quote here from the Wall Street Journal says, Trump told Maduro that if he didn't leave willingly, the U.S. would consider other options, including the use of force, according to people familiar with the discussion. So, yeah, who knows? But they did talk. It says alert. This is a U.S. Homeland Security news feed here. I don't think it's official. It's probably the unofficial U.S. Homeland Security news here on X. Alert in emergency phone conference between Trump and Maduro. Trump tells Maduro the only way to stop an attack is to step down and leave the country now. So I don't know. Who knows where it's going? I heard recently this week, I thought made a lot of sense, that Venezuela, the word Venezuela is simply Spanish for Vietnam. So think about that for a second. The word Venezuela is Spanish for Vietnam. And I think that's probably fairly accurate if we get all bogged down, bogged down as a country and as a military in Venezuela. I don't think it's going to go well. Anyway, Zero Hedge articles where that one is. G. Edward Griffin's Need to Know.news. This is probably the biggest article, the biggest news story of the last few days. 2 National Guards people were shot in D.C. One has died. Afghan suspect has ties to CIA and Soros. There he is. 2 West Virginia National Guard members, Sarah Beckstrom, 20 years old, and Andrew Wolf, 24 years old, were shot ambush style on November 26th in D.C. Sarah Beckstrom died from her injuries. The shooter is Rahmanullah Lakanwal, an Afghan national, drove across the country from his home in Bellingham, Washington, and allegedly used a .357 revolver. Lakanwal came to the U.S. in 2021 under Biden's Operation Allies Welcome after the U.S. withdrew from Afghanistan. You might remember that debacle. And he was granted asylum in April by the Trump administration. Lakanwal had served as an Afghan partner to the CIA. Clowns in action. Trump blamed the Biden open borders policy that let in 20 million unvetted illegal migrants. Yes, and that's true. He did do that, although it's looking like he came in through this Operation Allies Welcome under Biden, not necessarily sneaking across the border or coming in openly like so many other millions did. Trump blamed the Biden open borders policy that led in 20 million unvetted illegal migrants. The Soros-linked NGO World Relief funded the settlement of alleged National Guard shooter Lakanwal in Washington state from Afghanistan. World Relief funds from USAID, which is taxpayer funded. So that's where they get their money, from us. A report indicates that Sarah Beckstrom's name was Googled from Israel 4 days before the shooting. Remember, we talked about that with the whole Charlie Kirk shooting and how some of the different people that were involved, places that were involved, were Googled by people in Washington, D.C. and people in Israel several days to a week or so, I think it was, beforehand, before Charlie was shot. Well, it turns out Sarah Beckstrom's name was Googled from Israel. Here we go again, from Israel, 4 days before the shooting happened. Speaking of which, this is kind of how they know about this kind of stuff. There's a new feature on X. I mentioned this to some friends the other day. It's actually hard to believe, but then again, it's not at all hard to believe. Twitter X lists the Department of Homeland Security account location in Israel. Tel Aviv, Israel. And if you don't believe me, here's the screenshot. Homeland Security at DHS.gov on X, the old Twitter, date joined July 2008 in Israel, account based in Tel Aviv, Israel, 16 username changes. The last one was on July 2008, and connected app via the App Store in Israel. Isn't that lovely? And are you surprised? Well, here's what this article says. So Twitter/X lists Department of Homeland Security account location in Tel Aviv, Israel. X rolled out a new feature in account profiles showing the location where the account is based. We mentioned this last week when it came to Alex Soros, remember? And I said last week that it looked like he was based in Niger, according to what people were saying, researching Alex Soros' location based on that. And this is really a fallout of the same thing. Since a number of users affirmed that they took screenshots of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security that lists its location as Tel Aviv, Israel. X then briefly paused the feature for a, quote, unknown reason. That's because they were told to, probably by the U.S. government. The information was purged. It was purged from the DHS page, and DHS denied that its account is run from Israel. Of course. Some reports indicate that X had a glitch. It's always a glitch, where it showed the actual location of each profile regardless of a VPN. And then here's a James Lee post on X. DHS caught operating out of Tel Aviv, Israel. I get that they run our government and all, but have y'all not heard of a VPN? Such an unserious government. Anyway, here's more information about the Department of Homeland Security in particular. There's more information on that. But we will have more information on that as we go forward. I've got another article or two on that. Talking about MAGA accounts in particular. So we will look at that in a little bit. All right, so here's where we have to do the old switcheroo here. So based on that, let's take a look at the next one that I have pulled up, which is a Daily Mail article. MAGA diehard X accounts are run from far-flung foreign countries as new location feature exposes sinister deception plot. MAGA diehard X accounts are run from far-flung foreign countries as new location feature exposes sinister deception plot. Countless diehard MAGA accounts that promote an America First ideology on X have been exposed as originating from far-flung locations such as Thailand, Nigeria, and Eastern Europe. The latest update to Elon Musk's social media platform has sparked confusion and chaos across the world as trusted sources of political information have had their motives called into question. Under the change, an account's country of origin can clearly be seen in the user's profile page. The information has unearthed a dark underbelly of the MAGA movement as high-profile social media accounts promoting Trump have been exposed as foreign actors. This is easily one of the greatest days on this platform, outspoken Democrat commentator Harry Sisson wrote on X. Seeing all of these MAGA accounts get exposed as foreign actors trying to destroy the United States is a complete vindication of Democrats, maybe not, like myself and many others here who have been warning about this. I'm not saying he's wrong, I'm just saying it's not complete vindication. An account titled America First with more than 67,000 followers, which constantly shares content about Trump, Erica Kirk, Caroline Leavitt, and the broader MAGA movement has been exposed for being based in Bangladesh. Since the update, the majority of posts on the account now carry an X warning which reads, "The above account is based in Bangladesh and is trying to mislead people into thinking he is from the USA and a Trump supporter." Another high-profile account, 1776 General, describes himself as a constitutionalist, patriot, and ethnically American, but the account has been traced back to Turkey. So here we go here, and we've got just a few screenshots. We have the America First account with quite a few followers based in Bangladesh, and the General based in Turkey, and MAGA Scope based in Nigeria. So there you go. So this is somewhat comical, I think. Some of these people being exposed. Right side or left side, it doesn't matter. There's so many people out there lying about who they are. Here's another one. MAGA Nadine, based in Morocco. So, lots of that. North Africa, Poland. So these are, again, lots of questionable locations there on some of these MAGA folks. And now I don't know about the people on the left. I'm not sure if that article that I'm looking at here covers that. I haven't seen that. But it is very interesting for sure, isn't it? That's a Daily Mail article. So there you go. All right, now let's switch gears here and let this picture load. We've got next link. Again, my apologies for the delay. So this is an interesting picture. This is sort of a synopsis of what we were just looking at. This is something called Antunes. Profile picture is this young lady, and this is the reality. So, yeah, there you go. Kind of sums things up nicely. All right, and then we've got a need-to-know.news article coming up here. Let's pull that one up for you guys. Texts allegedly show ex-AG Attorney General Bill Barr's daughter tried to blackmail Candace Owens and others. She's a little surprised. Project Veritas released text messages reportedly showing former Attorney General Bill Barr's daughter, Mary Barr Daley, plotting to blackmail Candace Owens in 2021. She appeared to give directions to someone named Armstrong to have a photographer follow Candace and her husband. A CNN report dated 2019, the year Bill Barr was appointed to Attorney General, showed that Mary Barr, again his daughter, moved from the DOJ to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN. the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Unit. Her husband remained in his position in the Justice Department's National Security Division. One of Mary Barr's alleged messages ordered the recipient to work with Armstrong on sending some underage girl to secure the anonymous individual because he's an easy target. If the texts are authentic, it shows that minors are used as sexual political pawns. Project Veritas wrote on X, misrepresentation for Mary Barr stated the texts are fabricated. Meanwhile, neither she nor other subjects of our released texts, such as her father Bill Barr, Armstrong Williams, Jason Miller, nor Michael Ben Airy, have followed through on their legal threats. Fear of discovery, ? Note, Bill Barr's father, Donald Barr, was headmaster of the Dalton School when Jeffrey Epstein taught mathematics there. Despite having dropped out of college, Donald Barr wrote a futuristic fantasy novel called Space Relations that detailed the RAPE of a teenage slave. Some critics have speculated that the elder Barr groomed Jeffrey Epstein. Then here's a link here in this article to a New York Post story about that. Note, Project Veritas reportedly forced James O'Keefe out of the organization in 2015 and is no longer affiliated with him. I don't think it's been that long. It's been a year or two. But yeah, James O'Keefe is now O'Keefe Media Group, OMG. So anyway, further information, videos embedded. Kind of interesting, I think. G. Edward Griffin's need-to-know.news. And let's see, here's another one from the same site. It says NASA caught lying, I would say again. 3i Atlas moon landing and ISS live feed. Justin Harvey calls out NASA for using numerous Hollywood techniques to grossly mislead public about astronauts being on the International Space Station, the ISS. He questioned why no one can explore Antarctica. He also poked holes in space photos, the moon landing, and 3i Atlas. Clayton Morris from Redacted poses questions about what was hidden in Antarctica. Massive underground cities, ? Advanced propulsion technology or UFOs, ? In 1926, Admiral Byrd claimed to have been the first to fly over the North Pole, with pilot Floyd Bennett making him a national hero at the time. Then, decades later, he carried out Operation High Jump after World War II. He led a massive U.S. Navy expedition to Antarctica and mapped over 500,000 square miles of the continent. One of his tasks was to look at what the Nazis were doing in Antarctica, which reminds me of Steve Quayle's book. He has a book about that. They may not have been on the reverse engineering. They may have been working on the reverse engineering of crashed UFOs. John B. Lee, who worked for Operation of Strategic Services, the OSS, the predecessor to the CIA, claimed that Admiral Byrd didn't just fly over Antarctica, he actually entered inner Earth. Yeah, and that's all that's mentioned here in this article. But he claims that he met the King of Earth, which, at least in my opinion, would be the fallen one himself, Satan. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but Richard Byrd did say that. Admiral Byrd. Pretty interesting. They've been caught lying again. Of course, that's talked about in this video here from Redacted. And I would just point people as well to my good friend Bart Sabrell's website, Sabrell.com. He's got some really good information if you've never heard of him or seen him before. He does really good interviews, and that's how I first met him, actually, when he was a guest on Lost Arts Radio a few years back. And I help him do his podcast, not really too much on the production end, but I've helped him do a few things with that and post things for him here and there. But he's a really good, I feel like, authority person on the fraud that is the moon landing from 1969. And in it, he poses some really good questions in a lot of these videos, as well as, of course, this main book here, Moon Man. True story of a filmmaker on the CIA hit list. So It's a good site as well, Sibrel.com, Sibrel. So feel free to have a look at that. And then let's go to the next article we've got. Another need to know.news. Usually have several of these from this site. G. Edward Griffin's really good site. Brazilian ex-president Bolsonaro placed in a 12 square meter jail cell to begin his 27-year sentence. They want to make sure this guy can never get out again. This is, of course, what they wanted to do to Trump. They wanted to kill him first, but then if that didn't work, throw him in prison and throw away the key. Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, has been ordered by the country's Supreme Court to start serving his 27-year sentence after he was convicted for plotting a coup, which, of course, he did none of the sort, but they just made up charges and they're throwing him in prison. The charges were based on allegations that he cooperated with foreign influence and for not accepting the election results, which brought President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva into power. Bolsonaro was on house arrest, but was accused of trying to remove his ankle monitor, which showed signs of damage from a soldering iron. So he tried to take off his bonds, keeping him at the house. So now they're going to put him into a 12 square meter jail cell for 27 years. Among others, his top officials and supporters are also expected to begin serving out their sentences as well. So it wasn't just him. It was people around him. Very sad, but there is no constitutional type of government whatsoever in Brazil. It's just completely run by the globalists. And Da Silva was put in place to do that. They brought him out of prison so that he could run in an election, quote unquote, and be elected over Bolsonaro. And Bolsonaro had the support, but he was thrown in prison at this point because he questioned the election. He dared to question the election. Again, what they wanted to do to Trump and were never able to do. All right, let's see here. Liberty Beacon article coming up. The CDC to nuke newborn Hep B VAXX jab recommendation, question mark. Many of you guys know about this, something that newborns do not need, because why? You cannot inject health. That is why. In an upcoming CDC, the Center for Disease Creation, Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, meaning the body will take on board the wildly logical case for not injecting one-day-old newborns whose mothers don't have Hep B with a VAXX for the infection they don't have, that almost exclusively results from intravenous drug use and unprotected sex, neither of which are activities newborns will typically engage in. Typically. Activities that, if infants did partake of, would render Hep B the least of their concerns. That's true. That's very well said. The advisory committee will also consider whether injected toxic adjuvants like aluminum contained in the Hep B VAXX are beneficial or potentially harmful for infants. Yes, infants, they love their injectable aluminum. They all do. Don't we all? Yes, freaking ridiculous to inject a newborn with that toxic garbage. Yes, a newborn and any other, whether a newborn or a older person of any age. Absolutely. But yes, the aluminum is the adjuvant that irritates the immune system into a response, and the immune system then pumps up the antibodies, and then they say, look, we have antibodies, so we have immunity. We have immunity because we have antibodies. Well, you can have antibodies and still not have immunity. So the whole thing is a total ruse. It's a total joke and total fabrication and misuse of science. So that's the way it's always been as far as VAXXs go and the science supposedly that goes with them. And I've got an article that we'll look at tonight as to why it is such a religion. VAXXs and that technology have become a religion. And if you question it, you are bad. All right, so anyway, the next Liberty Beacon article for tonight, UK police were ordered not to act on evidence of the CB19 crimes. This is a 10-minute video report linked to below, right here, given by retired police officer Mark Sexton as to the following. Documents obtained under a Freedom of Information FOIA request show that in Scotland, for example, Scottish police had ordered their officers not to accept any evidence of crimes related to CV and the VAXXs. This applies across the board in the UK. Evidence of these crimes was suppressed everywhere. Under the purview of Operation Talla, T-A-L-L-A, hundreds of thousands of pieces of evidence and testimony were ignored. Police investigations not pursued. Sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? Which also included evidence involving deaths of the elderly in care homes due to midazolam over-administration and CV-VAXX harms and deaths. Citizens had simply no redress in law. In 3 days from the issuance of the video below, which is tomorrow, December 1st, Sexton will present the suppressed evidence to the public in video format. I wish he would just go ahead and do it. I hate it when they announce that they're going to do something and then they disappear. Hopefully that won't happen. We recommend listening to the entirety of his 10-minute presentation below. Dr. Tess Laurie picks up the story in relation to herself below as someone who had presented evidence of criminality to the police back in 2021 and got nowhere. Yeah. So this is all based around what happened in the UK. But, very similar things happened worldwide, of course. It was covered up, at least in the West. So quite a bit of info on this page about that. Very interesting, huh? That's on the Liberty Beacon. Now we've got some technocracy articles. First one here, MIT. AI can already replace 11.7% of entire U.S. workforce. 11%, almost 12. Why have technocrats always wanted to destroy labor? ? Howard Scott said in 1935, technology has swept away the human worker and then concluded that labor is non-essential to industry. Now they have created a digital twin for the U.S. labor market, only to watch it wither and die. Digital twinning is an AI-based tech to create simulated animations in silica, meaning in the computer, that can be tweaked and experimented on, and then these changes are transmitted back to the physical twin. Yeah, that's exactly right. And note that NVIDIA, one of probably the leading tech company, maybe in the world, has been working on digital twins of the entire Earth. Kid you not. And I think it's funny how Trump calls it NVIDIA, because that clearly shows he has no idea whatsoever what these companies do. NVIDIA, as he calls it. No, it's NVIDIA. And yes, digital twins have been something that they've been working on for a long time. Massachusetts Institute of Technology on Wednesday released a study that found that AI can already replace 11.9% of the U.S. labor market, or as much as $1.2 trillion in wages across finance, healthcare, and professional services. Yes, it's definitely, people who have white-collar type of jobs who will be the first ones to lose their jobs if this is going to be unrolled very quickly, very soon. So anyway, there is obviously more here, quite a bit. And a full story link to CNBC, I guess, is where further information is on this particular article. Again, that is on technocracy.news. Erica Kirk pledges Turning Point USA support to elect J.D. Vance in 2028. Either Erica Kirk is part of the financial betrayal, or she is so naive as to think the technocrat cabal is a friend of America. Regardless, she has willingly handed the TPUSA movement over to J.D. Vance. With an explosion of new TPUSA chapters after Charlie's death, the movement has morphed into a powerful political machine, effectively directed by Vance's progenitor, Peter Thiel. Given young people's proclivity towards technocracy, it seems a natural fit for Vance's advancement. Yeah. TPUSA CEO Erica Kirk said her organization's efforts to support a potential J.D. Vance presidential campaign in 2028 are, quote, in the works. Kirk's comments on an episode of The Megyn Kelly Show that was released on Monday were not unexpected. Now, they're really buddy-buddy, Erica Kirk and J.D. and his wife. They're very, very good friends. So it doesn't surprise me at all. Just, I guess, more or less official direction as to what TPUSA is going to do. Again, not that surprising. All right. Next article. Trump's new EO, executive order, Genesis mission, just gave the nation over to technocrats, lock, stock, and barrel. A new Manhattan Project has been declared by President Trump to urgently accelerate America straight into technocracy. All the stops have been removed. No nook and cranny of American life will escape. No element of science will remain untouched. The executive order was undoubtedly written by technocrats for technocrats. It will forever backstop any whim of technocrats with trillions of dollars of taxpayer funds, accelerating America into a new age of dark enlightenment. This is the final betrayal. So again, that is a very short post here on technocracy.news. I'm thinking that article has already gone behind the paywall, but there's more to it there if you're interested and or already subscribed to technocracy.news. It is there if you guys want to check that out. Very interesting. All right, and then here's the next article. We've got, for tonight, we have The Guardian. Thought this was kind of interesting. Quebec's put together a plan to ban public prayer. Quebec to ban public prayer in a sweeping new secularism law. Bill 9 would outlaw prayer and face coverings in public institutions, sparking fears that it targets Muslims in Canada. Yes, it's Muslims that we're worried about here. There are a lot of Muslims in Canada, though, for sure. Let's see. Again, this is on The Guardian. Quebec says it will intensify its crackdown on public displays of religion in a sweeping new law that critics say pushes Canadian provinces into private spaces and disproportionately affects Muslims. How about that? Bill 9, introduced by the governing coalition Avenir Quebec on Thursday, bans prayer in public institutions, including in colleges and universities. It also bans communal prayer on public roads and in parks, with the threat of fines of $1,125 Canadian dollars for groups in contravention of the prohibition. Short public events with prior approval are exempt. So you can get your prayer approved ahead of time. How about that? Said they've made secularism a key legislative priority, passing the controversial Bill 21, which bans some public sector employees from wearing religious symbols. In 2019, they did that. It plans to extend the prohibition to anyone working in daycares, colleges, universities, and private schools. Full face coverings would be banned for anyone in those institutions, including students. Wow. What are they going to do with the all of the women who wear beekeeper suits and have the full face coverings there, I wonder? The province will also limit the offering of kosher and halal meals in public institutions. It says, Stephen Brown, president of the National Council of Canadian Muslims, said the movement amounts to political opportunism and reflects a doubling down on identity politics and division in a desperate attempt to regain the public's trust. Well, I'm not sure how much of that is actually targeting just Muslims, but it seems like it would also target any and all religions, meaning Christianity as well as others. So, very interesting. I don't know what to make of that one. That's pretty out there, but again, it's Canada. It's what they do. Many of my Canadian friends would totally agree with that, I'm sure. National Guard member critically wounded in suspected terror attack in Washington, D.C., unlikely to survive, Dad says. Well, this particular article is about her, about Sarah Beckstrom, which she has already passed away. National Guardswoman gunned down by a suspected terrorist in D.C. was not expected to survive, her devastated father said on Thursday, which she did not. Sarah has a mortal wound. It's not going to be a recovery, her father said. Here's her dad right here. I'm holding her hand right now, the devastated dad added. She was shot in the head. She later died, President Trump announced on Truth Social. National Guard Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, 24, was also critically wounded and still clinging to life on Thursday. So I'm not sure if that's still the case or not. Somebody had reported that they had both passed away, but I don't know that that's true. I think it's just her at this point. I think the guy, I think Wolf was shot in the neck and she was shot in the head. Well, here it says, a man at Wolf's family home told the New York Times, Thursday, all we need right now are prayers for my son. Beckstrom was shot in the head and the chest, so she was, with a .357 Magnum caliber revolver just blocks from the White House around 2 p.m. Wednesday, when Lachenwall, I guess is how you say his name, allegedly opened fire. It's amazing how quickly we've learned the details on this shooter and the gun and the style of gun and the type of ammunition, the round, and the wound and all that stuff. We've gotten almost instantaneous information, unlike the Charlie Kirk shooting. What's different, I wonder? Wolf was wounded, so the guy was wounded with Beckstrom's weapon before a nearby guardsman took down the terrorist with his pocket knife. Yeah, I heard about that. And a 4-hero service member shot the attacker in the buttocks. It's what would be called a $1 million shot, right? Forrest Gump would say it was a $1 million shot. So they shot him in the buttocks and the leg, and he was stabbed with a pocket knife. Wow, just to get him to stop shooting. Yeah, so apparently he discharged his weapon, shot her a couple of times, and grabbed her weapon and shot Wolf, I think is what happened. Here's some still pictures here of dramatic footage shows the immediate aftermath of the shooting near the White House. They left 2 National Guard members wounded. Yeah, one has passed away. And here's Wolf, by the way. Here's him. She volunteered to be there on Thanksgiving, working today. She volunteers as many of those guardsmen and women so other people could be home with their families, Pam Blondie said. Yet now their families are in hospital rooms with them while they're fighting for their lives. So this is the shooter, Lachenwall. Please keep Andrew and his family and all those affected in your thoughts and prayers. So this is her again. Anyway, I just want to show that because I don't know how many times you're seeing pictures of the people who were shot. You just hear names, and it's not really the same to me. It's good to see, face with a name. Yeah, here we go. Lachenwall, armed with a .357 Smith & Wesson revolver, is suspected of staging an ambush near the metro station in Northwest D.C. He reportedly only had 4 bullets. And he shot Beckstrom first before picking up her weapon and proceeding to open fire on Wolf. A major with the National Guard was checking in on the troops when he heard the gunfire. He came to help. The major didn't have a firearm and was only carrying a pocket knife when he sprung up on Lachenwall while he was reloading ammo. He stabbed Lachenwall in the head multiple times and wrestled him to the ground when a fourth guardsman responded to the commotion and shot the alleged terrorist in the buttocks and the leg. They held him down till he was cuffed. So that was kind of, a little bit of how it unfolded, if you hadn't heard. But yeah, that's been quite the story over the last few days. So rightfully so. So what's Trump going to do? He is going to call in more troops, 500 more troops, I think, on the streets. And she was Googled in Israel before the shooting. Now, that's pretty interesting. I mentioned that at the beginning of the show tonight. The name of Sarah Beckstrom, the National Guard member murdered by Afghan CIA asset in D.C., was Googled by someone in Israel days before the shooting. Days before. So, I wonder why. Why would they target her? So here is the screen recording of the Google search results. Israel, the word Sarah Beckstrom, Israel the past 7 days, because it was disappeared. Here was the hit before it got disappeared. So apparently, and they were doing this with the some of the connections with Charlie Kirk as well. People would search and find out what terms were found, what terms were searched on Google, like where the locations were, like for instance in Israel and also in D.C. in the case of some of the terms and names and places with Charlie's assassination. So a search was made. People videoed that, and then when other people went back, or even the same person went back to try and recreate that, it was disappeared. So all of that was wiped. So apparently they know, when Google must know how to go, wipe that information instantaneously as soon as it's searched. So, in other words, it pays to have your screen recorders rolling, because if you do a search like that and find something, it probably won't be there the very next time you try and search for it. As far as the history of these searches. So anyway, it is interesting, though, that she was Googled a few days, what was it, 4 days? Before she was shot. It just says days before the shooting. So what is going on there? Someone was targeting her, perhaps? Or maybe somebody on the ground had a picture of her because she was seen on the ground and forwarded over to someone in Israel, perhaps, or somewhere like that. And then they decided to target her. I don't know. President Trump, I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries. So this is his long post. I won't bother reading it all, but, in answer to that, it's sort of like, well, it's about time. It's about time. But this guy that did the shooting of the National Guardsman openly worked for the CIA when he was in his own country, as we mentioned. So yes, permanent pause on migration from third world countries. So it's saying here at the bottom, I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the U.S. system to fully recover, terminate all of the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe's auto pen, and remove anyone who is not an asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country, end all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens of our country, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national who is a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. These goals will be pursued with the aim of achieving a major reduction in illegal and disruptive populations, including those admitted through an unauthorized and illegal auto pen approval process. Yeah. So, too little, too late in the case of these particular National Guardsmen, but at least he's shutting this down. And yes, they are going to put more troops on the streets in D.C. I think 500, but it's still not really that many, given what, the size of the city is and what they need to do. So anyway, that was at least the public part of Trump's response. All right, next article we've got LifeZet. Speaking of Charlie, we mentioned him a couple times tonight. Charlie Kirk's take on Biden importing of 30,000 Afghans hits a little after the D.C. attack. Afghan national who entered the U.S. in September 2021 through Operation Allies Welcome ambushed 2 National Guardsmen on Wednesday just steps from the White House. The suspect, identified as Lachenwall, arrived after the withdrawal from Afghanistan that occurred under Joe Biden. The attack raised questions about the vetting process used for evacuees brought into the country during that period. Biden-Harris administration said that Afghans arriving under the program underwent strict screening. Yeah, right. The shooting has renewed scrutiny of those assurances. According to the details of the incident released publicly, the ambush occurred in Washington, D.C., and both guardsmen were targeted at close range. So again, going back to the fact that her name was Googled ahead of time, she must have been on that patrol in that area, and somebody took a picture of her, and they facially identified who she was, perhaps. Plus, she's got her, name tag on and stuff, her badge. Commentary about withdrawal and its aftermath resurfaced following the attack. Charlie Kirk had expressed concerns in August 2021 about the scale and speed of the evacuation, connecting the influx of evacuees to broader political goals he believed were at work within the Biden-Harris administration. Kirk said, quote, President Joe Biden's Department of Defense will accept 30,000 Afghan refugees in the military installations following the collapse of Kabul. Boom. Political transformation. Let the country crumble, end quote. He said the situation was not accidental and viewed the events at the time as part of a political strategy. Kirk connected the evacuation to long-term changes in the country. In his view, the withdrawal was structured in a way that would create conditions for future shifts in the political landscape. He said this was all intentional. Joe Biden let it fall apart to now say, oh, I'm sorry. He argued that the situation was not about humanitarian concerns, stating that the issue involved long-term political calculations. Kirk said, what's going on here is Joe Biden wants a couple 100,000 more Ilhan Omars to come into America to change the body politic permanently. Exactly. Kirk said the decisions made during the withdrawal created risks for the United States and would produce long-term consequences. He said improper vetting created an environment where individuals who wished to cause harm could enter the country. We're playing checkers and they're playing chess, he said, as he outlined what he described as a strategic approach behind the withdrawal in the evacuation process. Kirk said the impact of the collapse in Kabul would extend far beyond Afghanistan's borders. And here's a clip here. The clip is embedded from a podcast. So, anyway, more info here on this article. LifeZet is where this one is, lifezet.com. Death toll rises to 128 in Hong Kong residential fire. 8 more arrested over towers renovation. So you can see the towers here that are, the flames have been put out at this point, but they're all burned structures. But note, they're still standing. I thought when buildings caught fire, they automatically fell down, especially high rises. We found that out on 9/11 in New York City, didn't we? But apparently, it doesn't work the same. Physics are different in Hong Kong. Hong Kong firefighters found dozens more bodies Friday in an intensive apartment-by-apartment search of a high-rise complex where a massive fire engulfed 7 buildings. Wow. And authorities arrested 8 more people involved in the tower's renovation. The death toll was one of the city's deadliest blazes and rose to 128, with many remaining unaccounted for. First responders found that some fire alarms in the complex, which housed many older people, did not sound when they tested. The director of Hong Kong Fire Services said, though he did not say how many were or were not working, and if others were working. The blaze jumped rapidly from one building to the next as foam panels and bamboo scaffolding covered in netting apparently installed by a construction company caught fire. So that's how it spread so quickly. Authorities arrested 7 men and 1 woman, including scaffolding subcontractors, directors of an engineering consultant company, and project managers supervising the renovation, the Independent Commission Against Corruption said in a statement. On Friday, crews prioritized departments from which they had received emergency calls during the blaze, but were unable to reach in the hours of the fire when it burned out of control. So, wow. Even 2 days after the fire began, smoke continued to drift out of the charred skeletons of the buildings from the occasional flare-up. More bodies may be found. Some 200 people remain unaccounted for. Wow. And some bodies haven't been identified yet. So that is crazy, but again, somehow the buildings did not collapse like they did when no plane hit Building 7 in New York City. I don't know. Not sure how that worked. I guess they were just lucky. Western Journal. Irina Zarutska's boyfriend rips judge who let Chicago burning suspect go after he'd been arrested 72 times. So this is a kind of a mix here of 2 different stories. The boyfriend of the late Ukrainian refugee stabbed to death in Charlotte, North Carolina, is speaking out after another young woman was lit on fire. I don't know if you guys knew about this. By a deranged man now charged with terrorism for a crime committed in Chicago. Irina Zarutska, 23, was stabbed to death on August 22nd while riding public transit. Her alleged attacker, 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown Jr., had a history of criminal offenses and was severely mentally ill. He had 14 prior arrests. In January, police did a wellness check with body cam footage showing Brown telling people that man-made material was controlling his body. So there you go. He was charged with first-degree murder. The crime created an uproar as the obvious question was how this man was walking free among the general public with a long criminal record. Yeah, well, he was let out on purpose by activist judges, wasn't he? We found that out. Fast forward to November 17th when a 26-year-old Bethany McGee was set on fire while riding a train in Chicago. The alleged attacker is 50-year-old Lawrence Reed. And guess his skin color. Reports from Chicago says that she remains in critical condition as her family has set up a GoFundMe. So apparently still alive. Live Mint, which is another website, I guess, reported Reed was on pretrial release at the time of the crime for an aggravated battery charge. He has over 70 prior arrests. According to the New York Post, Zarutska's boyfriend, I won't try and pronounce his name, highlighted that reality in an Instagram post about McGee slamming the judge who let Reed walk free after an extensive criminal history. 72 prior arrests sounds like a joke. I guess 72 times was not enough to understand who he is, he wrote in his Instagram story. Why they always wait for them to do something like that to start something and then to prevent it. You don't need to have legal expertise to agree with her boyfriend's assessment. Someone with a criminal record so long a book could be written about it doesn't deserve to live in a civilized world. Yeah. Didn't know if you guys knew about the additional attack in Chicago. So yes. When will it end? I don't know that it will. Exposed U.S. labs breeding deadly foreign ticks in bid for mRNA VAXXs. Lovely, huh? U.S. government-funded labs are actively breeding colonies of exotic hyaloma ticks imported from Africa to study Crimean, Congo, hemorrhagic fever, a brutal tick-borne virus with a 30% mortality rate that's never been detected in America. So what do? They bring it to America. 30% mortality rate. That is death. Not morbidity. That's illness. Mortality is when you die. Yes, the dreaded Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever. We need that in the United States as quickly as possible, don't we? This is a high-stakes research aimed at developing mRNA vaccines and analyzing transmission in livestock. It's raising red flags among experts who warn of catastrophic lab leaks that could unleash the disease on U.S. soil. Yes, it's definitely setting it up exactly for that, isn't it? Devastating agriculture and public health. The program involves multiple facilities, including the USDA's Agricultural Research Service in Manhattan, Kansas, which is tied to the National Bio and Agro Defense Facility, formerly run on Plum Island, which is that's where some of the other tick-borne diseases came directly from. So yes, of course, we have to have the USDA Agricultural Research Center in Manhattan, Kansas involved. It makes total sense. UC Davis in California and Texas Tech in Lubbock, according to research from White Coat Waste Project, first reported by the Highwire. These sites are establishing tick colonies to experiment on CCHF, which is, again, Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, transmission in cattle, sheep, and goats, assessing risks for the virus establishing itself here based on climate and ecology. Oh, I think they'll be also trying to perfect the jump to humans, don't you? It doesn't say that, but I'm guessing that'll be their first priority because that's very important. Make it jump to humans. Yeah, and then this talks about Lyme disease and Plum Island and all that stuff. So, anyway, yep, lovely. Campbell's fires executive who allegedly called the company's food Shiite for poor people. Only he didn't say Shiite. I'm saying that. So Campbell's Soup, Shiite for poor people. Isn't that nice? The Campbell's Food Company has fired an executive who allegedly called the company's product Shiite for effing poor people. They just don't hide it, do they? Martin Bailey, who was vice president of the company's information security department, was allegedly caught on a secret recording from a year ago insulting the company's food. A spokesperson for the company told the outlet that Bailey's comments are vulgar, offensive, and false. Yes, but that's what he thought it was for, so it kind of tells me that that's who they're targeting, right? Just a guess. Campbell said the voice in the recording is believed to be Bailey's, and he is no longer employed by the company as of Tuesday. We apologize for the hurt that they have caused, the spokesperson said. This behavior does not reflect our values and the culture of our company, and we will not tolerate that kind of language under any circumstances. The company previously told the New York Post that Bailey had been placed on temporary leave during an internal investigation. The recording was recently released as part of a lawsuit brought by former employee Robert Garza in Michigan's Wayne County Circuit Court. Wow. Garza, who worked for the company as a cybersecurity analyst, said he recorded the audio during a restaurant meeting in November of last year. Garza said he kept the audio to himself initially before turning it in to his supervisor, according to the report. Garza was terminated roughly 20 days later. He is now accusing the company of retaliation in maintaining a racially hostile work environment, the complaint reportedly alleges. In the audio, Bailey can be allegedly heard saying, "We have S blank for effing poor people. Who buys our S?" Again, Shiite. I don't buy Campbell's products barely anymore, as well as bioengineered meat. I don't want to eat a piece of chicken that came from a 3D printer. That was the quote there. He also allegedly said, effing Indians don't know a effing thing. They couldn't think for their effing selves. Campbell said it first heard of the lawsuit and parts of the recording on November 20th and said neither Garza nor his attorney notified the company, according to the report. Campbell's additionally called the comments of the recordings inaccurate and patently absurd. So there you go. If you happen to be Campbell Soup fans, you might want to think again. But yes, the bioengineered stuff does appear to be showing up in a lot of places now. Here's an article about that. Revolver.news article. Here's the real truth on bioengineered ingredients you're seeing all over grocery stores. Yeah, and you no doubt seen the food labels on products either that you've bought or at least seen in the store. The Campbell's Soup panic, which is what I just told you guys about, sent half the country into a food meltdown. One photo of a label that said bioengineered meat, and suddenly everyone thought Big Food was pumping out lab-grown mystery protein designed by the USDA and cooked up in a bunker somewhere. That is not happening, although, in all fairness, the Campbell's executive was probably right when he admitted the product itself was garbage. I meme, therefore I am. This says, breaking, Campbell's Soup VP and Chief Information Security Officer Martin Bally was secretly recorded saying the company uses bioengineered meat. Their products aren't healthy, and it's mostly for poor people who buy them. So, and then we went over what he said, including pieces of effing chicken that came from a 3D printer. And then here is the I meme, therefore I am Twitter account, X account, that has the video clip here. But that viral video had everybody and their brother reading ingredient lists at the store, and while that is a good thing, it's also causing public panic. Now, there's a viral clip from inside Aldi that is blowing up on social media. A woman is walking aisle after aisle, picking up cereal, bread, snacks, frozen dinners, even the so-called healthy stuff, and seeing that it's all stamped with the same phrase, quote, contains bioengineered food ingredients. People saw that and understandably freaked out. If one store looks like that, what does the rest of America's grocery landscape look like, and why does it feel like every single thing on the shelf suddenly has this creepy dystopian warning? That's because they do. Fair questions, but before everyone goes down a doom spiral, let's pump the brakes and tell you the truth straight, but without the fear bait. The term bioengineered didn't come out of nowhere, and it's not new. This all goes back to labeling change forced by the USDA a few years ago. The government swapped out the old GMO, genetically modified organism, wording and replaced it with the clunkiest, most anxiety-inducing term possible, quote, bioengineered. Same ingredients you've been eating for decades, not that that's a good thing, but now it's just a different label. And it says, here's a video that has everybody in a tizzy, where the woman is going up and down the Aldi food aisles here, where she's ranting. And here's the video. All the food's fake. Well, it's apparently just labeling GMO, but that's bad enough, right? If it's got GMO in there, people, that term had become such a hot button topic. They just changed the name of it, and they changed it from GMO to bioengineered, which is much better. But apparently it's the same thing. Not necessarily meaning, I think what this article is saying here, bioengineered doesn't necessarily mean 3D printed, which we hear the horror stories of the 3D printed meat, which of course is not meat whatsoever. Anyway, there's quite a bit here on this particular subject. It says, just to kind of sum it up here, it says, but this particular bioengineered panic isn't as scary as it sounds. It's mostly soy, corn, sugar beets, canola, and the additives that are made from them. So stay alert, stay informed, read your labels, and keep pushing for better food standards. So anyway, this article is saying, yes, it's not good, but it may not be quite as bad as what people are assuming that it is. So I think there's something to learn there. And in case you've seen it, I just wanted to point that out because people are really freaking out, and maybe rightfully so, about the whole bioengineered thing. Or you could just eat whole foods. How about that? And I don't mean from the grocery store. I mean actual whole foods. Foods with one ingredient, like a banana that's made from 100% banana. How about that? Speaking of food, I thought this one was kind of funny. And it's, it always seems to be there's always some weird horror story about people cooking turkeys and not living to do it again the next year. It says cooking a turkey kills roughly as many people every year as tornadoes or lightning. So those turkeys are dangerous. If Americans can turn anything into a full contact sport, it's cooking a Thanksgiving turkey. Every holiday, the country splits into two groups: the sane people who use ovens and the adrenaline junkies who drop the 20-pound bird into a boiling vat of oil like they're auditioning for Jackass 6. Yes. But here's the thing. Deep frying turkeys actually kills about as many people every year as tornadoes and lightning, according to the National Fire Protection Association. On average, 5 people die, 60 get injured, and more than $15 million in property goes up in flames because someone said, relax, this is easy, right before turning their backyard into Pompeii. Every year, firefighters try to warn Americans about the dangers of deep frying their Thanksgiving dinner, and every year someone decides to thrust a 25-pound frozen bird into a vat of scalding oil. The results are volcanic. We're talking instant fireball, oil geysering out like lava, and a blast that could singe eyebrows 2 miles away. This article is pretty funny. Which brings us to the wild demonstration clip below. Watch what happens the moment that frozen turkey hits the fryer. It's insane. But also exactly why these accidents keep happening. All right, you want to see it. Now, I don't have the audio queued up, but this is from 2016, so it's not exactly a real new thing, but you can get the idea of what happens here. Watch. He's going to drop it in there, and then kaboom. That's all it took. A frozen turkey in a deep fryer. So you can see why people get hurt. It says, but that's not all. Now let's break down what the weather has to do with all this and why a little rain or snow can turn your Thanksgiving feast into a viral disaster reel. Let's see here. Talking about this time of year. Simply put, weather matters. Please do not try and deep fry a turkey during the rain or snow. The mixing of cooler water with the very hot oil can cause flare-ups. I don't know why would you even want to try and deep fry a turkey? That's what I don't get. Most Americans want the crispy skin without the emergency room visit. So here's where the common sense part comes in. Before you fire up that propane tank and dunk a bird like you're baptizing it, a few things need to be nailed down. Remember, weather matters, surfaces matter, oil levels matter. Basically, everything your half-drunk uncle insists, quote, is fine, absolutely is not fine. So anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. There's a little bit more here, and more people here deep frying frozen turkeys. I thought it had something to do with the fact that it was frozen, but maybe not. Anyway, you won't find me trying that. No way. Midwestern doctor, and I mentioned this earlier, not by the domain name Midwestern doctor, but I did mention this. Why have VAXXs become a religion? How VAXXs became the holy water of Western civilization. So, and this is citing Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, someone that my good friend Richard Sachs from Lost Arts Radio talked about often. Miss Suzanne Humphreys, Dr. Suzanne Humphreys. She knew what she was talking about for sure. Anyway, yes, if you question them, you're bad. It is a religion, for sure. I'll just skip down to here. Worse still, decades of propaganda have enshrined a number of ridiculous standards and rationalizations to defend VAXXs. You are always expected to argue against if you so much as question them. Note, propaganda is a tool that is used to convince the population that something which goes against their interests cannot be logically justified is actually, quote, good for them. For this reason, propaganda is emotional rather than logical in nature, and frequently will use emotional arguments that on the surface appear logical, but once you peer deeper are not. Yeah, and there's a very good quote about all of that. If it can't be applied universally, it's not logic, it's propaganda. I'll repeat that. If it can't be applied universally, it's not logic, it's propaganda. Yeah, why do people believe in VAXXs? So the whole thing goes back, to the late 1800s, really. The religion of medicine. There's another section here. Quite a bit of info if you want more information about the religion of VAXXs. And it is obvious that that is the case. There are other things that are making their way into religiondom as well. For instance, I know Flat Earth has become a religion for some people. Now, not everyone, but that is one of those things. If you question it, you're bad. So just think about it. There are things like that, but VAXXs is even more so, for sure. But yes, if it can't be applied universally, it's not logic, it's propaganda. That's exactly right. All right, now this one I just thought we would look at the headlines just because. Oh no, I did pull up an actual article from this site, Sputnik. It's a Russian website. So the Ruskies have an interesting news site here. I thought this article was worth looking at. Russia's latest weapons that put the world on edge. Russia's nuclear triad has been reinforced with new weapon systems in response to the abundance of geopolitical challenges. Yes, that would be NATO trying to fight a war with Russia, using Ukraine as a proxy. I think they've figured that out by now. So here's the different missile systems. The Burevestnik, a cruise missile with unlimited range. The Poseidon, which I've talked about multiple times on this show, an underwater unmanned vehicle with a nuclear power unit. It's way worse than that, isn't it? The Poseidon is the one that creates the tidal wave of nuclear fallout, essentially. So you explode it next to a city, and it creates a huge rush of nuclear waste, nuclear irradiated water that rushes over a huge city or swath of area, a swath of land. The Sarmat is a ballistic missile capable of suborbital flight. So the Sarmat is the third one listed here. And the Oreshnik, which we've seen demonstrations of that. The newest Russian missile system with a medium-range ballistic missile. We've seen that before. I've shown that here on this show a long time ago. So, and here's some examples of some of them, I guess, in use. Probably not the Poseidon, though, I'm guessing. But they're talking about how it would work. Here's Poseidon underwater vehicle. Unmanned underwater vehicle with nuclear propulsion. Maximum speed up to 200 kilometers per hour. Operating depth up to 1,000 meters. I'm looking to see if it's going to do anything or just spin in circles, I guess. So anyway, and then they've got more information on this article here. Russia is building new subs to launch its terrifying Apocalypse torpedoes. So that's lovely. Anyway, I wanted to mention that just because it is there. Poseidon 2018 Ministry of Defense. You can see how big that thing is. Wow. So there's a lot here on this article. It goes way, way down here. Looking to see, they don't have that video embedded of the Oreshnik being tested and used. But that was something that was shared Here, from November last year. So it's been a year ago now. So anyway, Sputnik is where those Russian missile articles are here. Okay, RT.com, we've got just a handful of articles from there. U.S. senators demand probe into Trump's drug boat strikes. And this is something that, back when it started happening, I remember saying on the show that, how do we know? I mean, how do we know that it's what we're told that it is? How do we know that they're actually killing those people? And if they are killing those people, why are they not getting any sort of, judge and jury here? They're just being blasted. And we're expected to say, oh, gee, that's cool. That's fine. That's no problem. A bipartisan group wants to check whether the attacks constitute a war crime. It sure seems like it, on the surface anyway. A group of U.S. senators has called for a legal review of Trump's strikes on alleged cartel boats in the Caribbean Sea and the Eastern Pacific. The renewed concerns emerged after the Washington Post reported on Friday that Secretary of War Hegseth had issued an order to kill survivors from one of the vessels set ablaze by a previous strike. If that reporting is true, it's a clear violation of the DoD's own laws of war as well as international laws about the way you treat people who are in that circumstance. And so, this rises to the level of a war crime if it's true. And I don't disagree with that. I think it's something that needs to be looked at. But, the Democrats might also just make stuff up that aren't true. So how do we know that we're going to get a realistic and unbiased look at to what actually happened? So I don't think letting the Democrats do it is necessarily the answer here. I'm just saying that there need to be some questions answered, I'm sure. The person asking some of these things is Tim Kaine, who was Hillary Clinton's running mate a few years ago. So that is definitely worrisome. So anyway, Hegseth dismissed the Post report as fake news. He reiterated that the strikes were intended to stop lethal drugs, destroy narco boats, and kill the narco terrorists who are poisoning the American people. Which on the surface, people will agree with that and say, okay, well, that's fine. But how do we know that's actually what's going on? And we're told that it's fentanyl, but fentanyl, by most people's accounts, the people that have looked into it, even just a little bit, fentanyl's coming through from California, not through Venezuela. Venezuela apparently is known more for cocaine, not fentanyl, as far as trafficking goes, drug trafficking. So I don't know. I'm not sure what to think on this other than I really wish they'd stop blowing up these boats just because we can't know for sure what's going on. But apparently some U.S. senators are looking into the strikes. So I thought that was kind of interesting and not bad news. All right, and then let's see here. RT, U.S. rehearsing airstrikes against Venezuela, according to the Wall Street Journal. Donald Trump has reportedly threatened Nicolas Maduro with regime change in a phone call, which we mentioned that at the very beginning of the show tonight. The phone call. U.S. has been rehearsing airstrikes that it plans to launch in Venezuela in recent weeks, the Wall Street Journal reported on Saturday, citing a defense official and flight tracking data. President Trump has accused the Venezuelan government of operating narco-terrorist cartels and on Saturday announced that the country's airspace would be closed to, quote, all airlines, pilots, drug dealers, and human traffickers. So they're going to close the airspace above Venezuela. How would they like it if someone tried that with the United States? Would that work? The threat came amid a buildup of U.S. naval forces in the Caribbean, where, under Trump's orders, more than 20 alleged drug smuggling vessels have been struck since September. Which, again, we don't really know that. We're just told that's what's going on. And I guess we're supposed to believe it. But yes, Venezuela is Spanish for Vietnam, if you didn't know how to pronounce it. All right, and then next RT article. Trump declares Venezuelan airspace closed. President has said that his country will take action on land against alleged drug trafficking networks in Venezuela very soon. I think they just want the oil, don't you? Venezuela is a very oil-rich country. So it makes sense to me that they would invade. That's what they do. Just ask Afghanistan and so many others. Netanyahu asks Israeli president for a pardon. The prime minister has been plagued by a major corruption scandal for nearly a decade already. So Bibi has submitted a formal pardon request to President Isaac Herzog. The presidential office has announced the PM has been plagued by corruption allegations since the mid-2010s, yet consistently denied any wrongdoing. Yes, but he's never faced any sort of court or follow-up on that. He's always like sick or traveling or something like that. He can't make the court date. Herzog's office said on Sunday it received a letter from Netanyahu and a massive 111-page document from his lawyer. The presidency said it was aware that this is an extraordinary request that potentially carries significant implications. Granting this request will allow the prime minister to devote all of his time, abilities, and energy to advancing Israel in these critical times, and to dealing with the challenges and opportunities that lie before it. Sounds to me like they've already made up their minds. Granting the prime minister, as in Bibi, a pardon would supposedly help mend rifts between different sectors of the public, as well as contribute to strengthening the country's national resilience, Netanyahu's lawyer suggested. So, I don't know. He is the president of the United States, though, so you'd think he could just issue himself a pardon. But maybe not. The request will be examined by the legal department of the presidency, while the Justice Ministry's pardons department will gather the opinions of all the relevant authorities in the ministry. Well, clearly, the president of Israel needs to have an auto pen. That's the answer. I mean, Biden was signing pardons at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night. I mean, AutoPen did it all. So that's what needs to happen, I guess, over in Israel. You'd think somebody would figure that out. All right, we've got one information liberation article. Speaking of Israel, Melanie Phillips, Jews worldwide must put the Jewish people and the Jewish nation first. Yes, and that means before America, before anywhere else. Jewish Zionist activist Melanie Phillips, while speaking recently before a pro-Israel conference in New York City, called on Jews worldwide to put the Jewish people and the Jewish nation first. Diaspora Jews need to also realize you are not just Americans with Judaism added on. In Britain, they're not just British Jews with Judaism added on. You are part of the Jewish people and the Jewish nation, and that should come first. First and foremost, you are Jews. Everything else is secondary. So that kind of sums it up, doesn't it? The video's right here. And she's on the podium that says, rage against the hate. The hate just means when you disagree with anything they say. Then you hate. It's almost exactly what Jonathan Pollard said after fleeing Israel. Note, too, her slip-up, sorry, I said you should be loyal to your host country. So she did correct herself, I guess. Phillips also mocked, this lady, also mocked Christianity to widespread laughter as, quote, a Jewish sect that got slightly out of hand, end quote. So how about that? So she goes up there and mocks Christianity on top of it. I don't think God will forget that one, do you? I don't think he will. Anyway, yeah, the Rage Against Hate conference. So when you flip things around, just like you're supposed to do with these things, do a 180-degree turn. The Rage Against Hate means what? They're the ones producing the hate. So that's all you got to do is flip it around to see the real truth to the situation. That is a information liberation article on forbidden knowledge. This is a site we usually look at. I feel like the site has now kind of more or less turned into a Substack, which is fine, but maybe not. It's got a Substack associated with it for sure, forbidden.news, if you guys are interested in that. But they do have some really good articles. This one I thought might be worth a look. Theory of everything in the history of the past 160 years. The Civil War, the Titanic, the Bolshevik Revolution, the Third Reich, the Chinese Communist Revolution, the Great Depression, the JFK assassination, Korean Airlines. Let me click through here and see if it's a video. Yeah, it's a video. Korean Airlines 007, 9/11, Iraq, Afghanistan, the Patriot Act, the Russia hoax, COVID, the Biden regime, CBDCs, etc. Okay, so here's a transcript of what's said, I guess, a little bit in the first part of the video, maybe. So, Forbidden Knowledge TV, theory of everything in the history of the past 160 years. Kind of covers quite a bit of ground there, it looks like. Here's the Biden autopin presidency. I mentioned that just a minute ago. How 2020 was stolen, how 2024 was saved, but how subsequent and future elections will be stolen unless we stop using the machines. Yes, we keep talking about that, but nothing's happening. Anyway. Oh, and then Patrick Byrne, somebody that I've followed for a little while, says Venezuela to be resolved by Christmas, according to what he's putting out there. I don't know. I'm not sure if I buy that, but let's hope so. Anyway, Forbidden Knowledge is where all those things are. It was just kind of a general overview through the main page of the site there, main homepage there. Zero Hedge article I pulled up for tonight. New York Times torches Tim Walz after Somalians scam woke Minnesota for $1 billion on his watch. So Tampon Tim's at it again. The New York Times has thrown Minnesota Governor Tampon Tim Walz under the bus over a massive and sprawling fraud scandal that federal prosecutors say siphoned over $1 billion from the state's social safety net programs, more than the entire state spends annually to run its Department of Corrections. So here's Walz with Rep. Ilhan Omar, who married her brother illegally to become, a U.S. citizen or whatever. Total fraud. The fraud involves a series of schemes that federal authorities say took root over the past 5 years, many centered within Minnesota's Somali diaspora, where individuals established companies that build state agencies for services that were never performed. Yeah, so just looking at some of the comments here. Doug, I've forgotten why you call him Tampon Tim. Tampon Tim Walz. So, he was, of course, the most famously became the running mate of Kamala Harris, but he's called Tampon Tim because he fought to make sure that there were tampon machines in the boys' restrooms in public schools. Yeah, so that became his moniker. That's what everybody started calling him. So yes, anyway, never gets old, does it? Tim Walz. So yeah, the Somalians and the scam over woke Minnesotans for $1 billion on Tim Walz's watch. Not that surprising, is it? Not really. DHS, Afghan TikTok user suggested he was building a bomb targeting Fort Worth. Yeah, TikTok bomb threat arrest may have immigration effects. An Afghan national was arrested after posting a video of himself on TikTok indicating he was making a bomb with the intention of targeting the Fort Worth area, according to the Department of Homeland Security, which we have now learned is based in Israel, according to the articles that we talked about earlier tonight. The brief, an Afghan national was arrested and charged with making terroristic threats Tuesday after posting a TikTok video indicating he was building a bomb to target the Fort Worth area. Mohammed Alokazeh was arrested by the Texas Department of Public Safety and the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. Alokazeh was admitted to the U.S. as part of Operation Allies Welcome, Where have we heard that tonight? And became a lawful permanent resident in 2022. So he came over as part of Biden's Operation Allies Welcome, same as the Afghan national that shot and killed one National Guards woman and then also shot and severely wounded another National Guardsman in D.C. this last week. The same system. Operation Allies Welcome, Biden. Afghan national was arrested after posting a video of himself on TikTok, blah, blah, blah. So here's what's crazy about this and where we're going with it. Now here they do talk about the National Guard member who was killed also by another Afghan national. Here's what's crazy. Let me show you this picture. And again, not really mentioned in this article. This is a local Fox 4 news article. I don't know where Fox 4 is. I'm guessing Texas. Look at this. So this is the guy we're talking about here. Mohammed Alokazay. Note his race. He's white. No, he's not. He's not white. Isn't that funny? But that's what they're doing across the board. They're labeling these people. Let me see if I can find the other. I've got an article pulled up about this whole thing. Well, we'll get to it. I don't see it. Again, I've got all my links on a separate page. We will get to it tonight, so just hang in there. But yes, note his race. They've got him listed as white. He's not white, obviously. He is Arab, right? But they don't put that because if they list him as white and they list all perpetrators of various crimes as white, which they are doing, then it skews all the numbers. And then when people go and look at specific statistics on a certain region, who commits the most crimes in a certain area, a certain type of crime, then white is what keeps popping up left and right. It's the whites that are doing it all. No, it's just been mislabeled in the computer, and that's what comes up as the search results. This guy, who was literally trying to blow up Fort Worth, has been labeled as white when he was taken in to the Tarrant County in Texas. Tarrant County, Texas jail. Mohammed Alokazay. He's an Arab, not white, but he's listed as white. So anyway, you get the idea. And we're going to look at that a little closer. I've got another article pulled up on that. I'm not sure exactly where it is. We'll get to it, but yeah, it's, again, more fraud, more baked-in fraud that they do to skew the numbers. All right, so we've been talking about end-time stuff all along, and of course you have to talk about earthquakes in diverse places. And of course, we had nearly 500 earthquakes striking Alaska over the past week. Something we should be worried about. Did you even know that it happened? Probably not. I mean, I just found out about it today, but I'm not in Alaska very often either. Nearly 500 earthquakes have struck Alaska over the past week. The Alaska Earthquake Center reported with one of the most recent quakes rattling the Anchorage area on Thanksgiving. Alaska typically experiences a high level of seismic activity, and while almost 500 earthquakes in a week may sound like a lot, it isn't unusual for the state. The research seismologist with the Alaska Earthquake Center told to Newsweek. In fact, overall, we've actually been seeing lower seismic activity this year compared to other previous years. So last week's numbers aren't particularly notable in the broader context. Why it matters. The Alaska Earthquake Center shared the data on Wednesday in a post on X. Less than 24 hours later, a strong earthquake struck near Susitna, Alaska on Thursday, according to the USGS. The magnitude 6.0 quake hit about 9 miles west of Susitna and roughly 30 miles from Anchorage. No reports of major damage or injuries. Yeah, 6.0 is pretty big, but for Alaska, it's not too bad, And again, not that populated of an area. What to know, of the hundreds of quakes that hit Alaska over the past week, 5 were reportedly felt. So yes, they do have a lot of quake activity for sure. I just wanted to mention it just because they bothered to write the article about it, and yet they say That's no big deal. Happens all the time. The largest was a magnitude 5.8 west of Adak. Oh, wait a minute. The largest was a magnitude 5.8, which was made before the magnitude 6 struck on Thursday. So, yeah, the 6, I guess, was the largest last week. Sunday, November 30th, marks the anniversary of 2 notable Alaskan earthquakes. So today, in previous history, in 1987, on November 30th, a magnitude 7.9 Gulf of Alaska earthquake happened, and a magnitude 7.1 in Anchorage in 2018. Both striking on November 30th. Weird. Anyway, it says, while the two landmasses, Pacific and North American plates, move inexorably towards each other, huge amounts of strain build over days, years, and decades, blah, blah, blah. So, if you guys have watched Dutch Sense at all, he talks about how the energy moves around the planet, and it pops off in certain places that are susceptible to that, and certainly in the Ring of Fire, this whole area of Alaska is part of it. So, anyway, I just thought it was interesting because they're saying specifically here, oh, it's no big deal, and yet Newsweek decided to write an article about it, so it must be some kind of a big deal. Anyway, again, earthquakes in diverse places. So this video, I'm not going to play it just because I don't have the sound queued up and I have to do it differently and move things around and blah, blah, blah. But you guys may have seen this. Apparently, it went pretty viral on TikTok. But then, for some reason, TikTok pulled the video down. It says, the subject matter here is, Trump isn't building a ballroom. Now, this lady's just sitting here talking. And it says, Trump isn't building a ballroom. This much is obvious. TikTok pulled my video at 7 to 8 million views without appeal. And people keep asking where it went, so I'm reposting it here on YouTube. I'll just say this. An architect with 20 plus years on federal projects walked through why the numbers don't work and why the geometry is impossible. And when I looked at the donor list funding this project, it immediately read like a who's who of defense contractors and tech companies with very specific interests in government infrastructure. So I'll take the censorship as a compliment from Larry Ellison that I got a little too close for comfort with this one. I think she's exactly right. The Dre Dossier, if you want to look them up, they have a Substack and a YouTube channel. And we're going to link to this in the Substack post that I send out, so make sure you're on that list. Use the QR code in the upper left corner, and or you can just go to diamonddisc.substack.com as the crawler across the bottom will send you. And make sure you're on that list because you want to see this video, or of course you guys can just look it up on YouTube. It's not on TikTok anymore, and it is interesting that Larry Ellison, just like it's mentioned here, Larry Ellison is now part owner in TikTok, and now this video is gone and not available on their platform. So what she's talking about here is that, indeed, Trump is not building a ballroom, it's something else. And she goes into the fact that it's probably a data center. Now, I don't know if that means above ground or underground or where that is exactly, but anyway, you guys can take a look at this. I did find it pretty interesting. 4,100 comments, so a lot of people are interested in what this is talking about. It's already got 421,000 views. So people are interested in this, and the fact that, gee, it seems like we might be getting lied to. But she makes some good points in the video, for sure. It's not a ballroom, you fools. All right, now this is one of those side-by-side comparisons of justice in action. Or maybe not. Rochester man gets 180 days in jail for raping 2 girls under the age of 9. All charges will be erased from his criminal record if he successfully completes his probation. So he gets 180 days in jail for raping 2 girls under the age of 9. Now, just juxtapose that with Shiloh Hendricks, a name you may have heard, this white lady charged faces 270 days in jail for what? Using the N-word on a Rochester playground. So she used the N-word, and she gets 270 days in jail. And the dark-skinned kid over here on the left gets 180 days, not 270 days, for raping 2 girls under the age of 9. What's wrong with this picture? Is that justice? Should Shiloh be facing any jail time whatsoever for using the N-word on a playground? Shiloh Hendricks, a woman caught hurling racial slurs in a Rochester playground in April, has been charged with 3 counts of disorderly conduct, 270 days in jail. That's a long time, and she's obviously a mom. Anyway, wow, this is what's happening in our world. All right, speaking of data centers and what they might be building, and we're being told it is a ballroom. The United States has, or will have, 4,165 data centers. So Canada has 293. I don't know if that's will have or has now. Let's see. It might say on here. Anyway, the next closest is Brazil with 195 in the Americas. Canada, Brazil, Chile, and Mexico. UK is almost to 500. So where are all these data centers going? Well, they're going in our neighborhoods, in our backyards, and so forth. We're seeing the horror stories already happen. People's property not really being seized, but the area right next to their property being taken, and contracts being signed where no one can talk about it until they start building. Visualizing all of the world's data centers in 2025. See visuals like this from many other data creators on this app. Says key takeaways, November 2025 data reveals America's leadership in digital infrastructure, accounting for roughly 38% of the world's data centers. Europe is also a major force with nearly 3,500 across the region. Right here. So they're combining all of Europe here to get to 3,500. So all of these data centers ostensibly running AI, I guess. But yeah, 4,000. No, almost, 4,100 actually in the U.S. What I was looking to see was if that is existing or if that's coming soon or what that is. America, the epicenter of global data. The U.S. leads the world with 4,165 data centers, accounting for nearly 38% of all facilities worldwide. This is due to the country's robust tech sector, with major players like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. So it sounds like that's what's already in operation. Companies like OpenAI are also driving an historic build-out of digital infrastructure to power AI workloads, with spending commitments of $1.4 trillion between now and 2035. Whether or not this level of spending is sustainable remains to be seen. So yeah, it appears that this is the number that is existing as of now. What I wasn't sure about is if that's, as of this date, if that's what's planned to be built. But no, I don't think so. I think that's what's already existing. So 4,165 data centers in the United States. And one of them may be being built, or another one may be being built right there next to the old White House. Very interesting. Talked about food a little bit tonight, so this is another one of those stories. Lab-grown milk, quote, milk, will soon flood global food supply. A new warning sign has just flashed for anyone paying attention to the rapid coordinated shift towards synthetic meat, quote, and dairy, quote, as the global food supply is about to be flooded with a disturbing new product. Beginning early next year, the new product will hit supermarket shelves that looks like milk and pours like milk and is marketed as, quote, real dairy, but it was never touched by a cow. The product, created by Israeli startup Re-Milk, oh hell no, is a fully lab-produced, quote, milk manufactured using genetically engineered microbes. Genetically engineered microbes. Where have we heard that term recently? Genetically engineered. Don't they mean, bioengineered? Microbes. According to the Times of Israel, Remilk has partnered with GAD Dairies, G-A-D Dairies, to launch 2 variants. Variants. What else do they call variants? Viruses, right? Don't we have variants in viruses? So they're going to have 2 variants, 3% fat, quote, milk, and vanilla-flavored version of the brand New Milk. So 3% fat milk and vanilla-flavored version under the brand called New Milk. A barista line is also ready for cafes. The fake milk product is set to be released in Israel first. Because isn't it always Israel first? Before being rolled out globally, the company insists its cow-free drink tastes, quote, exactly like the real thing. It's sold as lactose-free, hormone-free, and cholesterol-free. And apparently also milk-free. Milk. I just added that. However, critics warn that this is just the latest example of a global push to replace natural meat and dairy with lab-grown alternatives while conditioning the public to see synthetic food as normal. Yes, and of course, Bill Gates has a heavy involvement, direct involvement in that, financial involvement in that, and so forth. Remilk is one of several Israeli firms racing to build what some called a post-cow industry. Yeah, because cows are bad. They have all that flatulence heating up the entire planet. And apparently they're also flying the geoengineering jets all around the world. It's cows flying them. Didn't you know that? Because the cows are the thing creating all of this global warming that we're experiencing. The Strauss Group is already selling cow-free drinks and cream cheese through Imagine Dairy. Imagine Dairy. Don't they have all these clever names? Using the same gene editing fermentation techniques. No thanks. Here's another one. Unreal Milk. Fully lab-grown dairy clone. I'm waiting for the punchline here. Are they going to tell us that it's actually ground up crickets or something? Might as well be. I mean, sounds just as appealing. Natural farming is being replaced with stainless steel vats. Living animals are being replaced with engineered microbes. Essential nutrient-rich foods are being replaced with lab-designed replicas. Consumers are told it's innovative and ethical and efficient. But the truth is far simpler and far more alarming. The world's food supply is being flooded with synthetic foods at an unprecedented speed, often with no debate, little transparency, and massive corporate pressure behind them. Yeah, and they just put it out there and expect us to buy it because we don't know any better. Remilk's cow-free New Milk is not just a new product, it's a signal, a warning that the era of real natural food is being quietly pushed aside in favor of a manufactured alternative controlled by a handful of powerful companies, and that this shift is accelerating faster than most people realize. Yes, it is. So anyway, I thought that was a very important article, something to watch for. And I'm looking to see, obviously they're starting in Israel with this, but if they're starting in Israel, it will be here before you know it. So something to watch for, and I don't know how we're going to know. But there you go. Just wanted to mention it. All right, and then we've got this one. This is a new site that I've been very familiar with their work, but I thought I would start looking at a few of the headlines at least. Rasmussen reports. Mark Mitchell does really good work, and I've seen many interviews with him. He heads up the polling aspect of Rasmussen, and some of these numbers on here are really interesting. Like 81% of Americans are now concerned about inflation. They're just now concerned. Looking to see if there were some others here. Voters still not sold on Trump's plan for 600,000 Chinese students. Well, that's good. Consumer spending update. Economic confidence declines again in November. Just 32% now expect higher stock prices. Lots of polling data turned into articles to have a look at. 43% view DEI as an excuse for discrimination. Millions experienced CV19 VAXX side effects. No kidding. Yeah, and millions more died. Just 37% attend religious services regularly. So anyway, that's Rasmussen Reports is where that is. So we'll come back to that and we'll look at that specific articles and stuff like that in the coming weeks. They have some really good data, some really good information. All right, this one appears to be a Substack. Yeah, it's a Substack called Uncorrelated, White by Default. Now, this is what we were getting into a little bit ago with the guy that was going to blow up Fort Worth, right? White by default. Systematic bias in U.S. criminal racial assignment. Misclassification inflates white rates 4 to 6%, deflates Hispanic rates 20 to 31%, and evidence from 1.5 million records. Introduction. Every so often, an X viral post emerges showcasing how non-white races are being systematically misclassified as white, which is what we showed you a little bit ago. The implication is that it never occurs the other way around and therefore must be malicious. A phenomenon of anti-white racism to cook the books in favor of non-whites to attempt at reverse racism to hide that pesky 13 to 52. I guess that's the ratio we're talking here. So yes, this is a Substack here. Matt Van Swol is a guy that I've mentioned multiple times here on the show. I ran down the rabbit hole last night. What I've discovered is shocking. I searched through thousands of arrests in my county, and every single Hispanic individual, every single one who has been arrested is labeled as white. Not one, not two, but hundreds. How long has this been going on? So look, let me see if we can get a little bit. Hold on. There we go. So you can see here, we've got, clearly non-white person here being labeled as white, and another one, and another one, and another one. So, and then here's more. White, unknown, white, white. Again, we have Arabs being labeled as white. We have Spanish, Latinos being labeled as white. Black people being labeled as white. And all these people, I guess, over here. Everybody's being white, labeled as white. It's to cook the books, like we said. However, these accounts of issues that trigger skepticism among those who wouldn't like finding out that non-white groups are more criminal than cataloged, and ambiguity for those inclined to accept the premise. You have to trust the compiler doesn't have an ideological right-wing bias pushing them towards cherry-picked cases, even ignoring one, manual inspection has inherent issues. There's variation in how someone classifies someone as white or not. It's anecdotal, limited to manual inspection. You have to trust that the N cases are reviewed are representative, which is almost impossible to prove with this method. Is this bias common? So they go into quite a bit of information here. Data quality assessment by state. Valid data in blue. Insufficient classes in kind of a peach color. So anyway, they can really skew the data by simply labeling the perpetrators of various crimes as white, which of course they're doing. All of these people that we're looking at here, none of which are white, are all labeled as white. So you can see again how they cook the books. Pretty wild, huh? I just thought I would point that out. I didn't know if you guys knew about that. Again, that's on Uncorrelated, which is a Substack out there. But we'll link to it in my Substack post. All right. And this one, rightfully so, is on a website called Medium. The AI glasses that remember everything about you. Brilliant Labs Halo explained. And it starts out with kind of maybe a good usage perhaps, but then we find out some other information. Imagine this. You meet someone at a party, you forget their name 5 minutes later, and desperately try to fake it. Now, imagine your glasses casually whisper, "That's Sarah, you met her last month at a startup event." Creepy? Question mark, maybe. Useful? Question mark, absolutely. Welcome to Halo AI Glasses by Brilliant Labs. The gadget everyone's calling a memory upgrade for your brain. Yeah. These sleek little spectacles come with an onboard AI called NOA, N-O-A. And trust me, it's not just another Alexa wannabe. Let's dive a step carefully into why the Halo glasses are shaking up the tech world and maybe the meaning of privacy itself. So here's what they look like. So yeah, that's not obvious to people who wear glasses or anything. I mean, people's glasses are very individual for their taste, right? Well, if everybody is wearing glasses that look just like this, it's going to be obvious that they are wearing Halo glasses. Interesting name too, huh? Meet Halo, the smart glasses that don't miss a thing. Okay, so what are we dealing with here? Halo isn't your average pair of glasses with a camera slapped on it. It's a full-blown AI-powered wearable computer. Think Iron Man's HUD, just less red and less aggressive. Here's what makes Halo ridiculously futuristic. AI agent Noah, a built-in assistant that remembers people, places, and conversations. Narrative memory. Instead of recording raw video, it stores structured memories, kind of like, quote, notes about your life. Doesn't that sound nice? Micro OLED display. Right there in the visual. Crisp, full-color visuals floating in your field of view. Bone conduction audio, so you can hear Noah whispering insights without blasting your ears. Yeah, and I would add that because it's bone conduction audio, that people around you won't be able to hear it either. It will only be heard by you. A little bit like voice to skull. 14-hour battery life, enough to get through a workday of remembering all your, what was that guy's name again? Moments. Open source software. Yep, coders can tinker, tweak, and probably make it say funny stuff. In short, it's like wearing a tiny, polite robot sidekick that never forgets anything. So is this where we're headed? Does that sound like something you would like to have? The elephant in the room. Let's talk about the one thing everyone's thinking. Isn't this just Black Mirror waiting to happen? Yeah, kind of. Even though Brilliant Labs insists that data stays private and processed locally, it's still a wearable that remembers your world. The company claims Noah only stores mathematical representations, not raw visuals. But who is verifying that? IMO, so in my opinion, transparency is great, but we'll need strong laws and smarter users to keep this tech from going rogue. Because let's face it, one day someone's going to forget to turn off memory mode during a breakup, and that data is going to live forever. Yeah, and then it's just a hack away. I'm just adding this. It's just a hack away from becoming public information. All of those recorded, conversations between people that aren't supposed to be recorded. Again, it's just a hack away from becoming public information, if you ask me. That's what it sounds like. This sounds like bad news, maybe really bad news, happening very quickly. Again, it's called Halo by Brilliant Labs. So this is where it's headed. Yes, Days of Noah. I think you're right, Matt. Anyway, that I thought was a crazy one. All right, another YouTube video I came across, and again, I don't really have it queued up. Cybertruck bombing just got darker. New police report raises huge questions. And the only reason I mention this is okay. So she's an InfoWars reporter. And the only reason I mention this is because I was just a few blocks away when this happened in Las Vegas at the turn of the new year. So right around the 1st of January, earlier this year, Las Vegas police just released a new report this week regarding the Cybertruck explosion at the Trump Hotel. Remember that? Involved combat veteran Matthew Livelsberger, that he had a very long manifesto on his phone, but you're not going to see it. Doesn't that sound familiar? Yeah, that's exactly what happened as far as the manifesto thing not being released. It's exactly what happened in the Nashville shooting here, just a few miles from where I'm sitting. And I guess that's all that we have here on this particular story. But yes, it's not going to be released as far as the manifesto that was on his phone. But what I'm wondering is, why did it take almost a year for us to even find out that there was a manifesto on his phone? Why did that take so long? A Cybertruck bombing in or at the Trump Hotel in Vegas. So again, kind of a crazy new development there on that story. All right, and then futurism. Thought this was weird. It's kind of a sort of a holiday story, but not really. Giant AI-generated Christmas decoration being torn down after residents noticed grotesque horrors hidden in it. You'll never guess why. So here we see some crazy snowmen and birds and dogs, and I don't know what they're supposed to be. Earlier this week, locals in Kingston, so this is in the UK, I guess, upon the Thames, a small borough southwest of London, were perturbed by scenes of Lovecraftian horror in the form of two enormous murals that appear to have been sloppily generated by AI to celebrate the holiday season. They just slapped them up here, see? The murals showed horrifyingly disfigured people, animals, and even a demented snowman, harkening back to a not-so-distant past when AI image generators struggled to generate pictures of hands with 5 fingers. Yes, that's very true, and I've noticed that some still do. Some joke that murals were put up to celebrate the return of our Dark Lord, while others question how such carnage was approved in the first place. That's because people didn't even bother to look at it. They just slapped it up there. The dubious artwork appears to have proven controversial enough for the affected building's owners to tear it down. As local journalism outlet London-Centric reports, though not for obvious reason that one would assume, a well-placed source told the publication that the art was created by artist Matt Collishaw, who's known for using AI to create well-reviewed art. But while Collishaw has yet to publicly assume responsibility, London-Centric reported that the artwork wasn't being taken down because it was lazy or nightmare-inducing. Instead, onlookers reportedly took issue with the AI slop's purported political message. One of the murals depicts a crowd of people splashing through ankle-length water, possibly invoking scenes of migrants crossing the English Channel, a point of major political contention in the UK. So yeah, they're worried about hurting the Muslims' feelings yet again. The adorned building's owners told London-Centric that nobody knows what made the murals political, insisting that they depict a Christmas scene inspired by 16th century Flemish painter Peter Bruegel, blatantly ripping off one of the most significant Renaissance painters in history. Doesn't necessarily sit better. It is worth noting. The depictions launched a heated discussion, with some reportedly claiming that it was mocking migrants, while others believed it was an attempt to humanize those who risked their lives by attempting to cross the channels on boats. The bizarre incident suggests people have become so sensitive to political football subjects like immigration in the UK that they're seemingly willing to look past a demented snowman and Cthulhu invoking demons, a sad state of affairs as xenophobia and racism continue to rise on the island nation. So they tore down the AI-generated horror murals across these buildings here. You can see some of the warped animals, whatever it was. They were supposed to be birds or dogs or bird dogs or something. I don't know what. So yes, AI-generated slop is what they call it. But yeah, it's a good thing we didn't hurt any Muslims' feelings. I mean, that's like the most important thing, right? We would not want to do that. All right, Wise Wolf Media's Substack, Examining the Existence of God. It's the newest article. And then Stairway to Hell, the ritual that destroyed Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page's Dangerous Game with Demons. Babylon never fell, it just moved to Rome. The book Vatican Assassins Couldn't Destroy. The most evil man in the world wants total control of your future, and he might get it. A Wise Wolf deep dive into Klaus Schwab. The Kennedy Effect, only the good die young. Is RFK Jr. following the same road to an early grave as his uncle and father? They're not building AI, they're building God's replacement. The garden, the serpent, and the machine that wants your soul. So those are some of the topmost Wise Wolf Media Substack posts. They're usually all pretty good, so I thought I would mention that in case you guys want to check out Wise Wolf Media on Substack. It's a good one. All right, here's one more on I feel like we've had a lot of food stories tonight. Here's one more. So we had lab-grown milk a little bit ago. Now we have lab-grown bacon to flood American food supply. Fake bacon is set to flood the American food supply as soon as a California biotech startup. So nothing is safe from being attacked here. Now they're going after bacon. And that'll really offend the Muslims. Fake bacon is set to flood American food supply soon as a California biotech startup takes the next step in the global push to replace real meat with lab-grown substitutes. However, convincing the public to accept a new hyper-processed food, quote, food, I would spell food with a PH. That's how we should do that. You know, we should also just start spelling food with PHOOD, because it's fake food. Hyper-processed food may not be so difficult as the corporate media is ecstatic about it. Mission Barnes, a Bay Area company specializing in lab-grown pork, is now rolling out what leftist outlets like Mother Jones and Grist are breathlessly celebrating as bacon without killing pigs. The company claims it has developed a form of cultivated pork fat grown in bioreactors that can be mixed with plant proteins and sold as real meat. Doesn't that sound good? Corporate outlets are framing it as a triumph of sustainability. There's that word. You know it's UN Agenda 2030 if it says sustainability and compassion. But critics warn it looks far more like another coordinated attempt to push Americans away from traditional food systems and toward lab-created, corporately controlled meat. Not farming, but manufacturing. Yeah, it's also going to cause all sorts of new cancers. Isn't that lovely? Mission Barnes starts by taking a tiny biopsy from a pig named Dawn on a farm in upstate New York. So Dawn the pig, it's Dawn the pig's fault. They feed the sample a nutrient slurry of plant sugars, proteins, and vitamins inside an industrial cultivator. Over 2 weeks, the fat cells multiply in tanks instead of in the animal. What happens when cells multiply? It's called what? Cancer. And that's what we're going to be eating? I don't think so. Once grown, the fat is combined with plant protein to create a hybrid product. It's not a pork chop, but an unstructured, moldable substance closer to ground meat. Yikes. Mission Barnes markets it as a base for bacon, meatballs, sausage, and other foods that could be reshaped without resembling an actual animal part. This isn't farming, however, it's food manufacturing and globalist-aligned interests are already calling it the future of eating. Well, they mean the future of eating for the rest of us, not for them. You see. Anyway, there's more here, but we don't really need to go on, do we? Here's where it's talking about sustainability. So yes, bacon and then milk, as we mentioned before. And you name it, they're going after it. If it's got anything good about it whatsoever, they will make sure that it goes away and that you can't access it. All right, the SIFT, we have, I thought we would look at the headlines. I didn't have any specific articles pulled up on this. Another article about the National Guards woman. Thanksgiving Day earthquake rattles Alaska. So again, it's not important. It happens all the time. And yet here's another story about the earthquakes in Alaska. So figure that one out. Death toll from Hong Kong apartment fires where the buildings didn't fall down, but they were all burned up. This says rises to 83. I think it's well past that. Record shopping expected for Thanksgiving weekend. Not sure if you guys went shopping over this weekend, Black Friday through, I guess, Cyber Monday's tomorrow. I did not. I stayed away. Thanksgiving gatherings stay larger post-COVID, surveys say. Well, that's good. All right, let's see here. Let's look at leohoman.com. That's the next site I've got here for us. Launching the Genesis mission, Trump signs creepy executive order elevating AI to national security status in effort to achieve global dominance. Trump signed an executive order Monday that makes the expansion of AI a top government priority and enshrines it as the holy grail in solving the world's most challenging problems. At least that's the claim. But is there more to this sinister agenda at work here? The executive order is called Genesis Mission. Note the choice of biblical language. Makes the development of AI a matter of national security, meaning everything and anything will be thrown at it, with no regulations or protections against the dark side of this technology. This is an important story, vital to be aware of, so let's break it down. So there is the full article here linked on leohoman.com. And it's also on his Substack as well, I think. Let's pull that up real quick. But yeah, AI, launching the Genesis mission. Here it is. Leo's newsletter, leohoman.substack.com. I think that's the newest article. A couple others from the 17th and 18th, but he must have taken most of the week off or something. But that's an important one. Launching the Genesis mission. So, yes. Something to keep a sharp eye on. I don't think Trump understands AI whatsoever. Do you guys? All right, and then Natural News article. Afghan gunman behind National Guard shooting previously worked with the CIA in his home country, which is one reason they wanted him over here, I guess. Lakanwal, however you say it, 29, an Afghan national who previously worked with the CIA and U.S. forces in Afghanistan, ambushed 2 National Guard members near the White House. He entered the U.S. in 2021 under Operation Allies Welcome, the Biden-era evacuation program for Afghan allies. Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom, 20, was killed, and Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, 24, was critically wounded. Again, I think he was shot in the neck, so I don't know if he'll make it or not. Hopefully he will. Lakanwal fired 4 rounds from an unregistered revolver, stole Beckstrom's weapon, continued shooting before being subdued. So anyway, and also being stabbed with a pocket knife. So yeah. Further information here on this article on Natural News. It's the only one I pulled up from this site, but as always, they always have some good stuff on there. Wine Press. Let's take a look at Wine Press Substack. Elon Musk says, work will be optional. Money will stop being relevant in the next 10 to 20 years because of AI. That's what he's saying. Declaration of war. Trump declares Venezuela's airspace to be closed in its entirety. So it says land strikes will begin very soon. Well, we keep hearing that, but luckily it hasn't happened yet. I don't know. My guess is it probably will. I just don't know how quick. So they've got the Campbell Soup story here as well. Tariff flop. Blue-collar employment plunges for the first time since COVID, with 59,000 jobs lost. Anyway, got some interesting articles over on the Wine Press Substack. It's one of those Substacks I usually refer to. Then we've got some Gateway Pundit articles as well. Thought this one was weird. Well, it's weird based on the main subject line here of the article, but just the fact that this even exists is kind of strange. It says the head of baby Jesus stolen from controversial inclusive nativity scene in Brussels. So the head of the baby Jesus figure has been stolen from Brussels' newly unveiled nativity scene in the historic Grand Place. The theft follows widespread criticism of the display's inclusive design, which features faceless figures made from patchwork recycled fabrics. So isn't that lovely? Europe is erasing Christianity. Nativity of Shame in Belgium, a so-called German artist, was paid 75 grand to create a nativity scene. She used recycled fabric to make the Holy Family and the wise men. Recycled fabric. You can see what the faces look like right here. There are no faces. It's just patchwork. Because again, we don't want to offend the Muslims. That's what this is about. City of Brussels introduced a revamped nativity scene on Friday, replacing an older version that officials said had become too damaged. Mayor Philippe Close, a Socialist Party politician and self-described secularist, commissioned the design through the cathedrals of St. Michael and St. Gudula. The selected artist, Brussels-based Victoria Maria, created the scene using sustainable materials. There's that word again. Depicting Mary, Joseph, baby Jesus, a donkey. Oh, wait, I bet the donkey has a face. Yeah, it kind of does. 3 wise men and a shepherd and a sheep, all without distinct facial features. So nativity scenes in Brussels are anonymous, faceless, to make experience more inclusive and avoid offending anyone. A true horror. So there you go. I was looking to see right here. Nativity scene in Brussels is faceless to make it more inclusive and avoid offending Muslims. There you go. They don't want to offend the Muslims. It seems to be their number one goal in the UK is to make sure the Muslims are not offended and that they love everyone. And yet, they're literally running around with machetes, whacking people's arms and legs off and raping everybody they can and everything else. So, but we don't want to offend them. That'd be terrible. And then, let's see here. Another Gateway Pundit article. Got a couple more of those, I think. We should throw her the H out of the country. Trump goes off on Ilhan Omar for marrying her brother, which she did. I don't think it was incestuous. I think she just did it to get into the country or become a citizen or whatever, which of course is completely illegal. But it's okay when she does it because she's a Democrat. President Trump on Sunday blasted Muslim Rep. Ilhan Omar in remarks to reporters aboard Air Force One. President Trump and Melania traveled from Mar-a-Lago to the White House after spending Thanksgiving in Florida. Trump told reporters that Democrat Rep. Ilhan Omar should be thrown the H out of the country after she reportedly married her brother to defraud immigration, which that is true. The paperwork proves it. She supposedly came into our country by marrying her brother, Trump told reporters. Well, if that's true, she shouldn't be a congresswoman and we should throw her the H out of the country. And that's true. I would definitely agree with that. Trump made a similar statement on Ilhan Omar in September. So anyways, yeah, we kind of showed her a little bit in that video we watched earlier. Ilhan Omar was elected to be a state representative for District 60B on November 8th, 2016, and took her oath on the Quran. I've heard that Zohran Mamdani also said he was not going to take an oath with his hand on the Bible. But that New York law says that you have to, so I'm not real sure what's going to happen there. They'll probably substitute in a Quran while no one's looking. In 2017, several months after Omar's marriage, history briefly created a national news item. Omar quietly petitioned the family court for a default divorce, claiming she could not locate Elmi, her brother. She couldn't find him. Yeah, that's because he was only used to get her into the country and her citizenship. That was what was important. She was suspected of using campaign donations to pay for the divorce from her brother. Ilhan is currently married to her political consultant. So isn't that lovely? So again, Trump is not wrong on that one. He's wrong a lot, but he's right on that. All right, and then let's see here. The next Gateway Pundit article, I thought this was interesting just because I know we have some Indiana folks in the audience, including myself. I grew up there. Snowy roads caused 45 vehicle pileup in Indiana. A massive pileup occurred in Indiana as winter storms hit the Midwest over Thanksgiving weekend. On Saturday, snowy conditions on Indiana's I-70 led to a massive 45 vehicle pileup. Look at that. Man, that's a mess. Indiana State Police officer who responded to the scene surprisingly reported there were no serious injuries as a result of the pileup. You can kind of see the mess. Those people were going pretty fast. Apparently, I mean, based on the wreckage here, it's amazing that there were no injuries, or no serious injuries anyway. Icy road conditions led to a massive 45-car pileup on I-70. Happened outside of Terre Haute, which I've heard Hal Turner, he calls it Terre Haute. But I'm from Indiana. I know it's pronounced Terre Haute, Indiana. Somewhere near the border with Illinois. Remarkably, Indiana State Police Public Information Officer Matt Ames reported that there were no major injuries in the pileup. So there were probably some injuries, just no major ones. So that's good. The Midwest has seen dramatic winter weather across the region this weekend. Lake effect snow has buried areas in Ohio and Michigan. Winter storm Bellamy has dropped close to a foot of snow in some parts of Iowa and Wisconsin. So, but there's no climate engineering or geoengineering involved at all. So don't even pay attention to that. It's strictly natural. And never mind the fact that it will probably be warm and all melted off very soon, after the temperatures rebound. All right, we've got a couple articles from InfoWars. Let's pull these up. 4 dead, 10 wounded in mass shooting at California banquet hall. Wait a minute, I didn't think Californians could have guns. Manhunt for suspect after targeted shooting at birthday party in Stockton. 4 people were killed and 10 others wounded late Saturday in Stockton after a gunman opened fire inside a banquet hall during a family birthday party. I thought it was just the gun that did it by itself. That's usually what happens. This is a shooting that authorities say appears to have been a targeted one. So, wow. Mass shooting, Stockton, 19 shot, 4 dead at a children's party. Looking to see if there's any information about the victims. Stockton Vice Mayor said the children's birthday party was a site of a mass shooting, and adding that an ice cream shop should never be a place where families fear for their lives. No kidding. AP reported that the shooting occurred at a banquet hall and that the victims were both children and adults. Wow. The sheriff's office said there are indications that the shooting could have been a targeted attack. Gavin Gruesom's office wrote on X that they've been briefed on the horrific shooting in Stockton. Yeah, and he's currently trying to figure out how to gain politically from that, I'm sure, because that's what Gavin Newsom does. Anyway, 4 dead, and this says 10 wounded, but it's actually looks like 19 wounded, 19 victims, 4 dead as of now, all children. So this is saying all the dead are children. Wow, very sad. That is an InfoWars article, and one more from this site. Trump rejects Maduro request for amnesty in newly disclosed phone call. We mentioned this earlier today, so I don't think we'll need to go into that any further. Would ramp up military action if he refused to step down, which it looks like he probably is going to refuse to step down. So anyway, yeah, and now they control the airspace, supposedly, over Venezuela. And Venezuela is Spanish for what? Vietnam. That's right. All right, and then let's see here. I didn't pull up any specific, not the B articles, but I thought we'd look at the headlines and see if anything looks interesting. People keep dog sitting these pit bulls. I know there's probably some pit bull fans out there. We keep seeing articles about things like this. Woman mauled to death while dog sitting pit bulls. Wow. So sad. I don't know why that's the case. Here she is here. What else? P. Hegseth is preparing to cut the U.S. military's ties with the organization formerly known as the Boy Scouts. Oh yeah, you can't have the Boy Scouts anymore. I mean, there are no such things as boys. You guys know I'm a hockey fan. I'm not really a Islanders fan, but this is pretty amazing, and it just shows the drive and the toughness of hockey players. This guy, Kyle Palmieri, pretty famous Islanders player, was on the ice. He tore his ACL while he was on the ice, and he gets up and he somehow gets the puck and throws it over to another guy who then scores a goal. So as he's getting off of the ice, after he'd already completely torn his ACL in his knee, he gets an assist and basically helps score a goal. He doesn't just whine and complain and the whole game stops and then they bring a stretcher in and get him off the ice. No, he limps off the ice after getting hurt and then helps score a goal and then gets off the ice. So there you go. That is the resolve of hockey players. I think that's a really good demonstration. Those guys are tough as nails. I used to know a guy who, I didn't know the guy, but I knew of a guy on the local hockey team here, NHL team, who we were friends with the team dentist from here in Nashville. And the team dentist took care of the, you can imagine, all the dental work that has to happen for hockey players. And there are several guys on the team at that point who would go in for dental work and would never, ever want any kind of, sedative or anything to numb the pain or anything like that. They would just have the work done and then they leave. So, man, those are some tough guys for sure. Anyway, here's another Indiana story. Indiana mom gives birth on the side of a road 10 minutes after hospital told her to go home. I guess they were wrong. Police arrest a parrot at a Korean cafe after it allegedly takes a sip of someone's coffee. And then they had to book him, obviously. Anyway, kind of silly. That's a little bit of a doom break, but there's some funny stuff there on notthebee.com. And then GeoWatch for this week, we have chemical freeze, which we were just talking about, the horrendous, car accident on I-70 in Indiana. But that is, it's chemical ice nucleation. That's where these things are coming from. Not nature. Multiple snowstorms to bear down on northeast Ohio Valley in early December, starting in, just a few minutes, basically, in early December, I mean. Cross-country winter storm could wreck post-Thanksgiving travel, which we're into that now, I guess. Can snowstorms be engineered? Artificial snowstorms bring chaos to Beijing That's another headline. China's artificially induced snow closes 12 highways. Again, another headline. I think that was from a few years back, though. If the Chinese government has been routinely engineering weather for decades, are we then to believe the exponentially larger U.S. military geoengineering jet tanker fleet isn't doing exactly the same? Yeah, exactly. So GeoWatch for this week, I think it was episode 538, and we just posted it. I sent him the file earlier tonight. Hopefully it's posted on Twitter as well now. So make sure you're following Real GeoEng Watch and some of the other Twitter accounts. I think there's 3 here. They're right here. Real GeoEng, as in geoengineering. Real GeoEng Watch. GeoWatch Gallery is, I think, mostly pictures. I don't handle any of these Twitter accounts, just a website, but Dane and his wife and family operate the Twitter accounts. So Real GeoEng Watch, GeoWatch Gallery, and GeoWatch News. So those are the 3 Twitter accounts. So make sure you're following along there if you happen to be on X/Twitter. And yes, the newest Global Alert News is available, and it's out now on geoengineeringwatch.org. And then let's see here. Scheduled weather. Let's take a look. 6 to 10 day outlooks. Now this is December 6th through 10. 6 through 10. So where I am, it's going to be colder than normal, but we have almost a split down the middle like we usually see. And you're probably noticing a pattern if you watch this show very often, because we look at this every single week and there's usually some sort of split somewhere. We have the hot side on one side, the cool side on the other side, as far as temperatures go. Might not be an exact split right down the middle, but sometimes it is. This one is kind of got a big swath through the middle here, but you do have one cool section, one above normal section. So apparently the extreme northwest is going to be above normal temperatures. Northern California, Oregon, and Washington in particular. And even northern Nevada. Wow. So warm out there, and then way below normal to just above normal in the east and Midwest. And even southeast. So anyway, that is the scheduled weather coming up. Let's take a look at the climate reanalyzer as well. Let's look at the climate reanalyzer and see what we got here. All right. Yeah. Monday, December 1st. So that is where we are now, basically. Pretty chilly. And again, we're going to see a warm up. So let's look at the different day sections here and see what we have. So as of right now, it's cool. Where I am, 11 degrees lower than what would be considered normal. And that is starting really tomorrow or now, 12/1. The next 4 to 6 days after that, starting December 4th, still cool, but not quite as much. And then 7 to 10 days, oh, look at that. We're bouncing right back up. Will be a degree above normal. So just in that period of time, from December 1st to about December 7th or so, it's going to be cold to warming up. So we're starting to see the bounce back here. If we could go even further out, which we can't on this, we can only go 7 to 10 days out. But my guess is you would see even more warmth here. I'm just speaking about where I am, but just in general, we see the chemical cool downs, and then that goes away. And then you see the bounce back warm up happens week in and week out, season after season, without fail. But that is geoengineering. That's what it does. ClimateAndEconomy.com for November 29th roundup. Friday ice update. Arctic sea ice extent is currently the lowest on record. And I know people talk about how, there's ice all over the Arctic and everything, but they've changed the way they measure it. They call just slush on the surface ice pack now. They've lowered the standards enough to where any amount of slush is now considered ice pack. So then you get the stories kind of like it's the white people creating all the crimes. you get the story saying, well, the ice pack is expanding. That's not the case. It's just being measured differently. It's slush. Astonishingly, sea ice still hasn't started to reform over the Barents Sea area yet of the Arctic. This includes record low conditions around Svalbard as well. So what is that, Greenland? Meanwhile, the Arctic sets new daily record lows. The global surface temperature continues setting new daily record highs. British farmer becomes world's northernmost olive producer. So they're producing olives in the UK, just like they would in, say, Israel. Scientists warn of severe climate-related risks to the UK economy and the security in the UK. Dimming the sun to fight climate change. So dimming the sun, talking about some form of geoengineering here. How about that? They don't usually have geoengineering related stories that much on climateandeconomy.com. They're just talking about what's going on around the world. Again, articles you don't really see or hear about in the mainstream. So there's more. There's quite a bit here. Flooding and record heat and all kinds of stuff. Desertification, cold spells in Asia. So there's crazy weather all over the world, due in large part to geoengineering. Not because of cow flatulence. I know it's hard to believe. Unless the cows are flying the planes, it's not the cow's fault. Anyway, all right. And then one more from, let's see, Israel 365 News. All right. Thought this one was weird. AI unlocks 1,000 years of Jewish history hidden in Cairo's sacred archives. How does AI do that? For more than a century, scholars have pored over Cairo Geniza, I guess, the largest collection of medieval Jewish manuscripts in the world. Knowing that its 400,000 fragments hold secrets of Jewish life, all that matters, learning and law from a millennium ago, but until now, most of these documents have remained locked away. Not by secrecy or censorship, but by sheer impossibility of reading them all. But that is about to change. I bet it is. Israeli researchers have launched Midrash, a groundbreaking artificial intelligence project that will transcribe the entire Geniza collection, making 1,000 years of Jewish history searchable, accessible, and alive for the first time. Okay, let me stop right there. Don't you imagine that if that's the case, AI will discover a lot of truths that these Israelis who run everything over there won't want the world to know, so then they will then start yet again a new cover-up? Don't you see that happening? I do. The National Library of Israel announced this week that the project, funded by 10 million euros, a 10 million euro grant from the European Research Council, has already begun digitally transcribing hundreds of thousands of manuscript fragments, with plans to process 10 million additional images of Hebrew manuscripts in the coming months. So they're pictures that they're processing, which that makes sense. Makes me wonder how accurate it would be, but still. Jewish law forbids discarding fragments of writing from holy literature. Instead, worn out or disfigured writing is stored in a designated area called a geniza, meaning to hide or to put away, either in a synagogue or cemetery, before proper cemetery burial. Wow, they're going to bury the fragments? Weird. Anyway, there's more here. Midrash changes that equation using an open source platform called eScriptorium. Researchers have trained artificial intelligence to recognize and transcript Hebrew script in all of its medieval variations. The AI learns by studying existing transcriptions prepared by scholars, then applies that knowledge to decode new manuscripts. When the system encounters difficult texts, human researchers review its work correcting errors and improving the training. The result is a feedback loop that makes the AI increasingly accurate while exponentially speeding up the pace of discovery. Yeah, lots of pop-ups on this website. Anyway, I guess that's all I wanted to say about that, but I do think it's interesting. But yeah, they're going to be using AI to unlock 1,000 years of Jewish history. And I'm sure it'll all be public information and they won't hide anything whatsoever, right? I mean, Israel would never do that. Would they? That is a rhetorical question. All right, let me see what I had on my X account this week. I did repost a few things. They used to call it retweeting, but now it's just reposting. Yeah, Tucker saying here, 30-second clip, praying for people is now a crime in Great Britain. You know, we've seen those articles where people praying outside of, and even outside and down the street a ways from an abortion clinic or something, those ladies getting picked up, getting arrested. Praying for people is now a crime if you're in Great Britain. If VAXX's saved lives, we wouldn't be allowed to have them. You know, that's a really good point. I never really thought about that. But if the vaccines really worked and it really saved lives, would we actually be allowed to have them? Think about that. That's a great question. Roger Stone tweeted, free Tina Peters. I mentioned her last week quite a bit. And, again, she's still sitting there rotting in prison in Colorado, and Trump does nothing. Why? And then, let's see. Looking to see if there's any update here. Candace, our show will be off the air this week, meaning during Thanksgiving. As an update, both the White House and our counter-terrorism agencies have confirmed receipt of what I reported publicly. Emmanuel Macron attempted to organize my assassination, meaning Candace, per a source close to the first couple. Also, I will again state that the French legionnaires were involved in Charlie's assassination, but they did not act alone. For all of you who doubted my claims, you can now look to the President of the United States and our intelligence communities to issue a statement to confirm whether I am telling the truth, Candace states. This was posted on the 25th, so a few days ago. Anyways, and then let's see. This was funny. A group of rats. You guys know what a group of rats is called? And then Owen Schroyer piped in, yeah, Congress. Exactly. Congress. This logic is lost on many people. Anything certified as safe and effective should not need liability protection. That's a good point, too. Anything certified as safe and effective should not need liability protection. Yep, and then there's the rats in Congress. Anyway, that is Diamond Report on X. Please follow along if you aren't already. The Diamond RPRT. I had to abbreviate report because it wouldn't fit. And why is that such a long word anyway? Why is abbreviated such a long word? I don't know. You ever thought about that? All right, and then let's see here. I've mentioned it multiple times. If you scan the QR code, I know you guys love QR codes, don't you? Can't wait to scan it. But if you scan it or just type in diamondista.substack.com, you get this page. And you can drop your email address in and click subscribe and, access the information. If you don't want to do that, it's fine. I've made it all free anyways. You don't have to share your information. It's totally fine. But you just click on no thanks and it takes you right into the site and you can access all of the info there. So yes, Substack is where I post the links to the shows, and not only the links that I talk about, the articles I talk about and so forth, but also the links to all of the various platforms. You know, the final version of the show tonight, the different YouTube versions, the BitChute, the Brighteon, the Rumble, all those things. Those are all taken care of on that one place, Substack. So, and then thank you to the 8 subscribers. We're up to 8 now on Subscribestar. So thank you guys. You know who you are. I always like to say that because it's true. I don't want to mention somebody and forget somebody else, and I don't know that people want to be mentioned anyways. But thank you guys for your support. It really helps me to pay the bills and make things continue to run as smoothly as possible around here. Again, I'm a one-man band. I do it all. I don't have any employees to push around. Just my computers. If my computers get mad at me or start mouthing off, then I just shut them off. So that's the best part about having computers as your employees. You can just turn them off. And I've had to do that a few times. So anyway, but yeah, thank you guys for helping to support the Diamond Report. Subscribestar is a great way to go to do that. And again, totally optional and certainly well appreciated. If you don't have the funds or can't or don't want to support financially, that's fine. Please share the show, the Diamond Report, on YouTube. There's 2 different channels, depending on which one you happen to be on tonight, or you might be on Rumble. The old channel that was revived and reinstituted from Google, which, by the way, I wanted to mention too, that not only did I get this channel back, I also helped Anthony Patch get his channel back too. So his channel and my channel were both banned the same week in January of 2021 when the you-know-whats rolled out. And we were saying things about those things that you inject, and his channel got banned and then my channel got banned, or vice versa. And yeah, same week in 2021, but he got his back too as well. So that is really good news. Hopefully they will stay afloat, and he's going to be putting out more content as well. So Anthony is back up and running on YouTube. He's got a secondary channel as well, just kind of like I did too. And this is the main backup channel. So we have 2 channels. We have Take It to the Lord in Prayer, which is now the backup channel. Looks like this. But the Diamond Disc channel has the most subscribers on it, and that I consider as the main channel. But please share the videos, share the live news broadcasts, and you might notice, if you happen to be a subscriber on the channels here, that we'll have the live version of the show tonight, which is the raw, unedited version of the show, is up during the course of from the time I finish the show until at some point when I publish the new version. That's what I call the final version. That might be Monday night, could be Tuesday. This live unedited show will stay up until that point. And then after that, I set this live show to unlisted, so the link still works, but it will disappear from the live broadcasts. So like for right now, we see the current show that I'm working on. That's here. But last week's live show isn't listed under the live tab. It's listed under videos because even though the link for last week's show still works, this is what I consider to be, this one right here, is the newest one from last week. That is what I consider to be the final show. It's got the title, it's got the thumbnail cover, and all of that. The extra work that I put into it, editing, cleaning it up, mastering the audio, making it all sound good, look good, as good as possible. I mean, it is me we're talking about. Make it look as good as possible and sound good as possible. And sometimes I will add stuff in the final version that I don't have in the live version of the show. So it is possible that the uploaded version that you see a couple days later will have added content. It's usually just videos. I don't usually go back and add other articles and things where I'm on camera and talking. I don't usually do that unless there's some sort of technical problem. But I do often add extra videos, or I may take away videos that you see when you're live with me here tonight. You might see a video that I play that I remove from the final version just to keep the length of the show down as much as possible. Like last week, we went really long on this show. We were at close to 3.5 hours. Well, I edited it down last week to 3:06. So that way it gets rid of some of the extra stuff that I didn't feel as necessary as the 3 hours and 6 minutes of solid information that you got. Just as a for instance, So typically I'm removing things that are what I consider extra stuff, but sometimes I will actually add things as well if I've missed something or wanted to add it that you should see later. So if you miss the upload version, know that it is slightly different and always, in my estimation, always better than the raw version that is the live show. But I want to leave the live show up as long as I can while I'm working on the other one, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't. I know, it's as clear as mud, right? All right, and then let's see here. The BitChute channel, again, I'm copying and pasting one by one here at a time just because my browser was just not cooperating today. So we're just doing one at a time. I guess it's working all right. BitChute channel, the Diamond Report on there. Again, newest show. Crowdsourcing the investigation between, Candace investigating what happened with Charlie. So BitChute and let's see, Rumble. And then hello to the Rumblers out there. Let me see if you guys had any comments in chat. We have a few people watching. A few comments. Miss Emily posting things on the Rumble chats. Thank you for doing that. Talking about the merch. Talking about the band group. Talking about Truth Hunters. And talking about Substack and Subscribestar and all that stuff. So thank you, Emily, for posting all that stuff. Yeah, the Rumble channel, again, the final version of the show will get uploaded to Rumble as well as back on YouTube and uploaded on BitChute and uploaded on Brighteon and all that stuff. We'll do all that stuff. The live version of the show is available for a day or so, same as it is on YouTube, because we are currently live streaming to two YouTube channels and my Rumble channel. So it'll stay on there as well if you missed that. So if you happen to be on Rumble, you can catch the show live on there as well as the archived live show, and then again the final version too. Why do I do all that work? Well, because I'm a production guy. I like things to be as perfect as possible, and I can't help it. Crowdsourcing the investigation, that's the newest show again from last week, available on Brighteon, and it's brighteon.com/channels with a S and then /Diamond Disc. And Diamond Disc is my company name. That's just the name that I've used across the last few years. And I'll tell you why I used it. There's been some question as to, okay, why did you use that? Because your actual company name is Diamond Disc Audio. Well, the question is, the answer to that question is Diamond Disc was also, that's the name I've been using as my business name, Diamond Disc Audio, since I started the company in 1996. And registered the domain name in 1997, I guess it was. Early days of the internet. Well, there was a company, I'm not sure if they still exist anymore. It was a little record label, I think in Texas, called Diamond Disc. And it was a guy who didn't have the last name Diamond, who just started using that name. And so then I remember thinking, okay, well, I'm going to start using Diamond Disc everywhere because I've been using it longer than him, because I was able to find out, when that company started. I don't even know if it's still around or not. So diamonddisc.com was taken, so I became Diamond Disc everywhere else, like on all these other platforms, like on Twitter and YouTube, which the channel has now been restored, and all these other platforms, because I didn't want him to have the word Diamond Disc on his all of his social media. So that's why I started using Diamond Disc everywhere, because I wanted to become Diamond Disc because I'd been using it longer than he had. So if that makes sense. That's why it was shortened, and plus it's just easier to remember, at least in my opinion. So we have the band group, Diamond Report, 111 members, and I guess we didn't have any new people this week. But thank you guys who happen to be in the band group. I feel like it's a good group of people, and you can go in there and post what you guys are researching. I really like to see what you guys are looking at, and sometimes it even makes it onto the show. Not always, but sometimes. It depends on how interesting it is. Anyway, that's it for me, I guess, tonight. Let me look and see if you guys have any exciting comments, or even some that aren't so exciting. We can talk about it. Let's see what we have here. And then, of course, the comments are we now have a mechanism to post that over there on the side strip of the screen, so that's good. What it doesn't get, though, is it doesn't pick up any comments in the Rumble chat. So if you're chatting on Rumble, it I can see it, but it doesn't show up on the screen here. Unfortunately, there's no way to connect it that way. And unfortunately, that's just the way it works. Yeah, let's see here. Lots of people saying how grateful they were this week. So that's good news. All right, here's a question. Niger, isn't that racist? Question mark, Matt says. It depends. Well, yeah, Niger is not racist. If you have two G's in there, then it would be racist. If you know what I mean. But you can't say that word because clearly Shiloh, the girl that's about to serve her time in prison, learned the hard way, didn't she? Yeah. Let's see. What's Kamala up to these days? Kamala Harris, what's she up to? She's still doing interviews. I've still seen her somewhat drunk doing interviews where she is talking in her typical word salad because she doesn't have a script right in front of her. If she has a script right in front of her and she's not drunk, then she kind of makes sense. But otherwise, forget it. But yeah, she's still doing some interviews. She's still toying with the idea somewhat publicly of running again. Like that would go well. There is no way in Hades that the Democrat Party is ever going to allow Kamala Harris to get the nomination again because she bungled it so badly this last time. She was supposed to win, remember? And she didn't exactly win. Yeah, so thank you guys, and God bless you, and thank you for your love and prayers, Miss Susan and others. And yeah, thank you guys for being here tonight. I guess we can wrap it up. Know of anything else? Let's see, the next broadcast will be on what? 12/7? Is that right? So on Pearl Harbor Day. I have to see if I can find some Pearl Harbor information to mention. But yeah, Pearl Harbor Day. That's December 7th. That would be the date that lives in infamy. And that would be the next broadcast. So stay tuned for the Diamond Report then. And in the meantime, we'll get this show polished up and published, uploaded on all the various platforms that we've already mentioned tonight. And we'll get it posted at some point in the next day or two. Probably, I would say by Tuesday at the latest. So that's the way it works around here. Just, again, one-man band, so I'm kind of doing everything. But that's okay. I don't mind that. I like it like that. And, yeah, God bless you guys. And stay safe out there, Miss Emily says. Oh, yes. So thank you guys again for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to jump off here. Still have some more stuff to do tonight, believe it or not, even though it's 12:23 a.m. But happy December. It is now December, at least here. Out west, it's not yet, but it will be soon. We're just a month away from a new year. Can you believe that? What in the world? Anyway, this year has gone fast. I think the earth is spinning faster and it makes time go faster. That's my explanation anyway. I'm sure it's not true, but that's what I say. I hope you guys have a blessed week. Again, keep Jesus close to you. And I think we're in the end times. I really do. And I know many of you do as well. We see it in the headlines of the day, of the weeks. And we go through it as much as we can on a 2 or 3 hour show here on this broadcast. That's the goal here, is to just look at the headlines and say, yeah, we are that much closer to Jesus returning. I feel like it's going to be very soon. I know many of you guys do as well. So blessings to you all. Love you guys. Hope you guys have a fantastic week, and we'll do it again next week. Same time, same channel. It will be 9 p.m. on December the 7th that we do the next Diamond Report Live. So we'll see you then. Love you guys. Talk to you later.